Chapter 3952. The beast raised its claws with all its might in an attempt to block the terrifying sword chi. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. The sword chi was just too terrifying. At that moment, it was as if there was only a single strand of sword chi left in the entire world. No one could rival or block it. Spurt! The sword chi pierced through the beast, and then the beast was cleaved into two. Its enormous corpse was split in two. The split corpse fell from the sky and collapsed, torn apart by the countless strands of sword chi. After completely killing the beast, Yuan let out a sigh of relief. His heart was filled with bitterness. The absolute beginning cave was truly strange. He had only just entered, and he had already encountered such a terrifying beast. He really didn't dare to imagine what other strange things he would encounter if he continued onwards. Bang, bang, bang. Just as Jun was lost in thought, he sensed terrifying tremors in the surroundings of the desolate land. Afterwards, he discovered to his shock that the barren mountains that stood on the desolate land had all collapsed. Horrifying gigantic beasts covered in scales poked out from the bottom of the barren mountain. Horrifying roars rose one after another. Zhuowen's face immediately turned green. He knew that a terrifying beast was suppressed under every mountain on the desolate land. There were at least a few dozen mountains on the desolate land. In other words, there were at least a few dozen terrifying beasts hidden under the desolate land. I have to leave this desolate land. Without even thinking, Yuan used his movement technique to the best of his ability and shot towards the east. Not long after, he saw a boundless grassland in front of him. When Yuan was still a few hundred meters away from the boundary between the grassland and the desolate land, ear-piercing sounds of something tearing through the air came from behind him. He swept out with his soul and saw a few dozen terrifying beasts leaping over 10,000 kilometers into the air. They shot towards Yuan like arrows that had been released from a bow. They moved extremely quickly. Zhuowen's heart beat extremely quickly. He was extremely nervous. The moment he arrived at the boundary, the sound of something tearing through the air had already arrived behind him. The roars of beasts constantly rang in his ears. A huge beast claw suddenly slammed over, grabbing toward Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen reacted very quickly. He suddenly turned around and slashed out with the purplish gold sword embryo in his hand. The beast's right claw was chopped off by Jun. Blood splattered, and Jun grunted as he fell completely into the boundary of the grassland. Yun landed on the grassland. He rolled a few times in a sorry state before he finally stabilized himself. At the same time, the dozens of beasts stopped at the boundary of the desolate land. They stared fixedly at Yun with their scarlet eyes, but they didn't dare to step out of the desolate land and enter the grassland. It was as if there was some sort of a strange force was. Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the dozens of strange beasts didn't dare to step into the grassland. He hurriedly got up and began to observe the grassland. This grassland wasn't green, but blue. Blue grass grew densely on the ground. They covered every corner of the grassland. Other than that, there was nothing else on this grassland, not even a living creature. Zhuowen didn't even see Ma Yujie's figure. Suddenly, Yuan discovered that the blue grass under his feet was shaking slightly. Then, it spewed out dark blue gas. It wasn't just the blue grass under his feet. The entire grassland was spewing out this strange dark blue gas. The dark blue gas slowly rose and poured into Zhuowen's pores and nostrils. There's something wrong with this gas. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He felt powerless and dizzy. He immediately closed all the pores on his body and held his breath. He knew that this wasn't a long-term solution. He could only close all the pores and breathe for 10 days at most. After 10 days, he would suffocate to death. In other words, he had to leave this blue grassland within 10 days. Zhuowen looked at the wasteland in front of him. At the border, the dozens of strange beasts were baring their teeth at Yun. They couldn't wait to swallow Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that he couldn't return to the wasteland. Once he did, he would probably die. He could only continue forward and leave this blue grassland. Zhuowen planned to use his movement skill. Unfortunately, he was powerless and couldn't use his divine power. He was like an ordinary person. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. He knew that the reason for this was because of the dark blue gas released by the grassland. He could only leave this grassland and force out the poison in his body. Only then could he resolve his powerless state. Zhuan didn't dare to force out the poison in this strange grassland. Because when he forced out the poison, his pores would open and he would inhale even more poison. At that time, he might not even have the strength to walk. Zhuan took many antidote pills. After slightly alleviating the poison in his body, he set off. The antidote pills he had weren't of a high level. They could only temporarily suppress the poison, but they couldn't completely eradicate it. This made Zhuan sigh helplessly. Time passed day by day. Zhuan was like an ordinary person. He walked through this grassland step by step. Finally, on the 10th day, Zhuan saw the border of the grassland. On the other side of the grassland was a world of ice and snow. Snowy mountains stood there. They were covered in white snow and were wrapped in silver. At the same time, he saw a fat figure at the top of a snowy mountain in the world of ice and snow. This fat figure was looking at the grassland as if he was looking for something. When the fat figure saw Zhuan, he was very excited. He hurriedly waved his hand in the air, indicating for Zhuan to go over. Zhuan's face immediately darkened. This fat figure was none other than that damned fatty, Ma Yujie. Zhuan gnashed his teeth. Back in the wasteland, this damned fatty had abandoned him without hesitation. He had almost caused his death. Now, he actually had the face to wave at him. He was simply shameless. Ma Yujie obviously didn't know this. He had been waiting for Zhuan. He only had one primordial stone on him. He could roughly sense the location of the third primordial stone, but he couldn't sense its exact location. They could only find the exact location of the third primordial stone if they worked together with Zhuan's grand word stone. Zhuan's face darkened. He strode into the world of ice and snow. Then, Zhuan ignored Ma Yujie. He sat cross-legged at the foot of a snowy mountain and began to circulate his divine power. He opened his pores and began to force out the poison in his body. Chapter 3953. When Zhuan forced out the poisonous blood, on the summit of the snow mountain, Ma Yujie also came to the foot of the mountain, silently waiting for Zhuan to finish forcing out the poison. Roughly an hour later, Zhuan suddenly opened his eyes bursting with a light that was difficult to look at. He thoroughly forced the poison out of his body, only feeling refreshed, full of vigor. Congratulations, Brother Zhua, for successfully forcing out the poison in your body. Ma Yujie hurriedly went forward to congratulate, his fat face revealing a brilliant smile, as if he was really happy for Zhuan. Zhuan glanced sideways at Ma Yujie, a nameless fire rising in his heart. Back in the desolate land, this damn fatty was too unloyal, directly abandoning him, nearly causing him to lose his life in the desolate land. If Ma Yujie joined forces with him back then, he could finish off that exotic beast even faster and leave the desolate land unhurriedly. Seeing that Zhuan ignored him, Ma Yujie did not get angry either, saying sincerely, "Brother Zhua, I know that you're still blaming me for running away alone in the desolate land. This matter can't be blamed on me either. I was really too scared of that exotic beast, so scared that I only wanted to escape. I was wrong this time. Brother Zhua, punish me. I can bear any consequences. Furthermore, I also know that Brother Zhua, you're someone who deals with matters as they are. Our main objective entering the Grand Primordium Cave was for the primordial stone. I think that Brother Zhua, you're someone who considers the big picture. You definitely won't dissolve the cooperation between us because of this small matter, right?" Zhuan looked at Ma Yujie indifferently and said indifferently, "You can rest assured. Our cooperation is an oath to Heavenly Tao. I naturally won't go against it. However, from now on, you and I still need to swear to Heavenly Tao. During the cooperation period, we must work together as one. Unless it's a last resort, we absolutely can't run away alone." Ma Yujie revealed a hesitant look. But seeing Zhuan's expression becoming uglier and uglier, he could only brace himself and swear such an oath. He knew that Zhuan was really angry. This time, it would not be so easy to fool him. After Ma Yujie swore an oath to the Heavenly Tao, Zhuan's expression eased up. "Take out your ancient word stone. Let's sense the exact location of the third primordial stone." Zhuowen said indifferently. Ma Yujie naturally did not dare to be negligent. He took out the ancient word stone, while Zhuowen took out the supreme word stone. The two stones emitted mysterious purple rays of light. The two rays of light intertwined and shot up into the sky. After about a quarter of an hour, they suddenly rushed into the depths of the snowy mountain world. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie looked at the same time and found that the light was still pointing to the east. The two of them were shocked. They had already passed through the desolate land and the blue grassland and arrived at the third world of ice and snow, yet they still hadn't arrived at the hiding place of the third primordial stone. Judging from the direction of the light, the third primordial stone should be even deeper. From this, it could be seen just how big the world within the absolute beginning cave was. Let's go. Let's move on. Zhuowen put away the supreme word stone and urged Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie put away the ancient word stone and nodded his head. The two of them executed their movement techniques and rushed toward the depths of the world of ice and snow. This world of ice and snow is very strange. These drifting snowflakes directly affect the divine soul. If one stays here for too long, their entire divine soul will be frozen, and the person will also die silently. Ma Yujie and Zhuowen walked side by side, purple energy revolving around their bodies. That was the power of the ancient word stone, protecting his divine soul. Zhuowen was stunned. He sensed carefully. His divine soul indeed felt somewhat stagnant. He discovered that these snowflakes affected the divine soul silently. If not for Ma Yujie's reminder, he wouldn't even have noticed this effect. Zhuowen hurriedly urged the power of the ancient word stone. Purple energy surged out and enveloped his entire body. Only then did that stagnant feeling in his divine soul completely disappear. Brother Ma, you've been to the absolute beginning cave before? Zhuowen asked in surprise. This guy even knew this. Zhuowen suspected that this guy had come to explore this place before. Ma Yujie shook his head and said, "It's also my first time in the absolute beginning cave. The reason I could sense the strangeness of the world of ice and snow was because I found corpses on the snowy mountains. I studied these corpses. Their divine souls were all frozen without exception. Other than that, they didn't have any wounds at all. They were no different from ordinary people." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and didn't ask any more questions. The two of them instantly fell into silence. About several hours later, the two of them arrived at the border of the world of ice and snow. They saw that there was a huge lake at the border of the world of ice and snow. However, this lake was frozen by the ice and snow, turning into a layer of ice. On the ice surface, there were many ice sculptures. These ice sculptures were of the human race, half-beast men, and also giants that were over 30 meters tall. At a glance, there were at least several hundred of them. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie both stopped at the shore of the lake at the same time. Their expressions became extremely solemn. This was because they realized that the postures of these ice sculptures on the ice surface were surprisingly consistent. They were all rushing toward the border of the world of ice and snow, leaving the world of ice and snow. However, they didn't successfully leave in the end. Instead, they were affected by some kind of power and turned into ice sculptures. This lake is very strange. Ma Yujie muttered to himself. He looked at those strange ice sculptures and then at the lake. We each have a primordial stone. Even if this lake is strange, I'm afraid it won't be of much use to us. Zhuowen was very confident. He was very confident in the power of the primordial stone. Therefore, he took out the supreme stone and held it in his hand. Then, he lifted his foot and stepped into the lake. The moment he stepped into the lake, the supreme stone in his hand immediately emitted waves of purple energy ripples. They wrapped around his body in a ring shape, forming layers of powerful protection. Zhuowen's body trembled. He looked at his feet and saw waves of terrifying cold air that seemed to materialize. They lingered around his feet, wanting to rush up and freeze Zhuowen's entire body. Fortunately, his supreme stone released a blazing purple energy that blocked all the cold air below his knees. Even so, his small feet below his knees were frozen into ice sculptures by the cold air. They were crystal clear, making it difficult for Zhuowen to even walk. Zhuan had no choice but to follow suit. He walked extremely slowly. Ma Yujia's eyes flickered when he saw Zhuan walking on the lake safely. He also took out his supreme stone and jumped into the lake. Chapter 3954. 10 hours later, the two finally reached the opposite side of the lake. After the two of them barely reached the shore, they sat on the ground and began to use their divine power to break the ice on their calves. This lake is really strange. This cold air is too terrifying. If not for the protection of the primordial stone, I'm afraid I would have turned into an ice sculpture too. Ma Yujia kept rubbing his feet, which had turned red from the cold, as he muttered and complained. Zhuan did not say a word, but quietly recovered his strength. He had a feeling that the third primordial stone should be very close to them. After resting for a while, Zhuan and Ma Yujie were ready to continue forward. Behind the world of ice and snow was a vast plain. At the end of the plain stood a pyramid. Zhuan and Ma Yujie looked at each other and took out the primordial stone tacitly. Immediately, two intertwined purple rays of light shot out, landing on the pyramid at the end of the plain. Looks like the third primordial stone is inside that pyramid. Ma Yujie said excitedly. Zhuan's eyes also lit up. They had searched in the absolute beginning cave for so long, experienced many life and death crises, and finally found the final location of the primordial stone. The two of them put away their respective primordial stones and rushed toward the pyramid. In a short while, the two of them arrived at the bottom of the pyramid. This pyramid was 1,000 feet tall, made of green jade stones that were several feet tall. In addition, the surface of the pyramid was drawn with dense patterns, looking ancient and full of vicissitudes of time. There are extremely powerful restrictions set up around this pyramid. Ma Yujie's eyes were solemn. He kept pacing around the pyramid, a look of contemplation in his eyes. Zhuan stood silently on the spot. The restrictions on this pyramid were too complicated, he could not understand at all. Now, he could only place his hopes on Ma Yujie. This guy's origin was not ordinary, and he knew more than him. Most likely, he had a way to break this restriction. Sure enough, Ma Yujie suddenly stopped and said to Zhuan, "Brother Zhuan, although this restriction is very powerful because of its age, its weakness is also extremely obvious. Next, you'll attack the weak point of this restriction with me and break it open completely. However, you must listen to my commands." Hearing this, Zhuan thought for a moment and nodded in agreement with Ma Yujie. Next, Ma Yujie took out the red bracelet and began to issue orders, bombarding various parts of the pyramid. Zhuan followed Ma Yujie's instructions and attacked with all his might. When their joint attack landed on the tip of the pyramid, the runes on the surface of the pyramid lit up instantly. A terrifying pressure poured down and spread across the entire plain. Zhuan and Ma Yujie immediately withdrew their respective astral weapons and hastily retreated. The light on the surface of the pyramid shone brightly and then gradually faded away, restoring the original appearance of the pyramid. However, at the center of the pyramid, a piece of green jade stone was suddenly pushed out. It fell from the pyramid and hit the ground. Bang! A dull sound was heard. The sound of the huge green jade stone falling to the ground was extremely loud and clear. The entire ground seemed to have shaken several times. Zhuan and Ma Yujie looked at each other with joy on their faces. They knew that the hole created by the falling of the green jade stone was the entrance to the pyramid. "Let's go!" Zhuan and Ma Yujie didn't even think about it. They both charged into the gap and disappeared into it in the blink of an eye. The structure of the pyramid was very complicated. It was crooked and twisted like a maze. Moreover, the passage inside was very narrow. Zhuan and Ma Yujie walked side by side, and it seemed a little crowded. The two of them walked through the passage for a full day before finally walking out of the passage and entering the center of the pyramid. Originally, the two of them thought that the pyramid would be full of dangers and countless traps. However, they did not expect that they would easily reach the center of the pyramid without encountering any traps. At the core of the pyramid was an extremely large stone hall. Thick stone pillars stood on both sides of the stone hall. The surface of each pillar was engraved with various strange beasts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Their expressions were ferocious. In the center of the stone hall, there was an altar. Above the altar, there was an ordinary-looking stone floating in the air. The moment Jun and Ma Yujie saw the stone, their breathing quickened. This stone was the third primordial stone that the two of them had been searching for. Jun and Ma Yujie stiffened. Then, the two of them rushed toward the altar at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the two of them arrived in front of the altar. They reached out their right hands at the same time and grabbed the floating stone on the altar. Bang bang! Suddenly, the surface of the altar shone with a terrifying light. It was as if a universe of light had spilled out. Jun and Ma Yujie were hit at the same time. They spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. What a powerful earth energy! Jun landed on the ground and looked at the primordial stone floating on the altar with a bewildered expression. To be more precise, he was looking at the altar because the terrifying energy just now had surged out from the altar. Ma Yujie also looked at the altar in bewilderment. Obviously, he did not expect such an accident to happen. The two of them calmed down and looked at each other warily. They both felt a little embarrassed. The moment they attacked just now, the two of them had already shed all pretenses of cordiality. In the end, it was Ma Yujie who broke the silence. He coughed dryly and said, "Brother Joie, this altar is not ordinary. Why don't we work together and break this altar first?" Zhuoan pretended to think for a while and finally nodded. "I completely agree with your opinion. After all, we are still partners." After reaching an agreement, the two of them put their arms around each other's shoulders and called each other brothers. They were just short of swearing blood to form an alliance. "Let's begin." Ma Yujie and Zhuoan took out their rank 5 astral weapons at the same time and attacked together. The purple gold sword embryo slashed out with a purple gold sword light that shot into the sky. Space shattered and collapsed, and time seemed to flow backward. The crimson bracelet erupted with a terrifying crimson light. It condensed continuously and finally transformed into a gigantic crimson dragon that was thousands of meters long. The dragon's body was covered in dragon scales, and it looked cold and terrifying. The purple gold sword light shot into the sky and intertwined with the gigantic crimson dragon, erupting with an extremely terrifying power. Suddenly, the entire stone hall was enveloped and occupied by the purple gold and crimson light. It was demonic and terrifying. When the two attacks finally landed on the altar, the entire altar trembled violently. Then, the stone hall also started to shake. Countless cracks appeared on the surrounding stone pillars, and then they collapsed. Yun and Ma Yujie almost lost their balance. Chapter 3955. Finally, the altar that was covered in cracks emitted a clear and melodious cracking sound, and then it collapsed with a bang and dispersed into countless pieces of powder. Yun and Ma Yujie's eyes lit up. They acted at the same time to snatch the primordial stone from the altar. As they approached the primordial stone, Yun suddenly slashed out the purple gold sword embryo. A terrifying and vast sword Qi soared into the sky and blasted toward Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie's expression changed drastically. He never thought that Zhuoan would give up on the primordial stone and attack him directly. It was really against common sense. His right hand was about to touch the primordial stone, but the purple gold sword embryo's attack was also close at hand. If he ignored it, he could indeed snatch the primordial stone, but he would also be hit by the purple gold sword embryo's attack. This was a rank 5 astral weapon. Its full power was enough to injure him severely. Once he was heavily injured, he would fall into a passive position, and Zhuoan would seize the initiative. At that time, he would really be in danger. Not only would he lose the primordial stone, he might even lose his life. Ma Yujie made a prompt decision. He withdrew his hand and used all his strength to summon the red bracelet. Waves of red energy rippled in front of him like endless radiance. Bang bang bang. The purple gold sword embryo fell like a sun and smashed onto the red bracelet. Suddenly, the purple gold and red intertwined. The whole world seemed to be occupied by these two colors. In the instant when the two of them were in a deadlock, Guan narrowed his eyes. The yin-yang pattern above his head spun rapidly and split into two incarnations. They were the yin god and the yang god. The The young god's body emitted a blazing light like the sun. He suddenly rushed out and appeared above Ma Yujie. He punched out fiercely. The punch was as powerful as a mountain. It was so powerful that the entire space exploded. Ma Yujie's expression changed slightly. He snorted coldly and punched out with his right hand. The fist light was like a long spear, sharp and heavy. Bang! The two fists collided, and the yang spirit was directly sent flying backward. Cracks appeared on his powerful body, and Ma Yujie also snorted and took a few steps back. Ma Yujie's face fell as he cursed under his breath and charged towards Inshin. Zhuan naturally wouldn't let Ma Yujie have his way. Holding the purple gold sword embryo in his hand, he suddenly slashed out. Terrifying sword chi continuously condensed, turning into a sword light that pierced through the heavens and earth. Heaven and earth primordial one line. Zhuan's voice was cold and indifferent. His right hand suddenly slashed out. A terrifying sword chi shot out like an arrow from a bow, and slashed in front of Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie's expression changed drastically. This sword aura was too terrifying. It actually made him feel like he was about to die. It was too terrifying. Ma Yujie had no choice but to retreat. One step back was followed by another. Ma Yujie used all his strength to activate the red bracelet. Countless red energy ripples continuously condensed in front of him, forming layers of red protective shields like tortoiseshell. Bang, bang, bang. The sword chi was too terrifying. When it slammed into the protective shields, the layers of protective shields were all shattered. With every layer of protective shields that shattered, Ma Yujie took a step back. When all the protective shields were shattered, Ma Yujie had already retreated 1,000 meters away. He barely managed to block the terrifying sword chi. Ma Yujie's face was gloomy as he looked at the young man who was standing in the void 1,000 meters away. He was playing with the third primordial stone in his hand. He never expected that he would be the one to fail in the fight for the third primordial stone. This kid is too cunning. Even I fell for his trick. Ma Yujie was flustered and exasperated. At the same time, he felt helpless. According to the agreement, the third primordial stone would be fought for by one's own ability, and it would belong to whoever obtained it. Now that Zhuan had taken the stone, it naturally belonged to Zhuan. Brother Ma, you're indeed noble. You can even give the primordial stone to me. I'm really impressed. Zhuan kept the third primordial stone in his macro world and cupped his hands at Ma Yujie with a smile. Ma Yujie was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he had no choice but to suppress his anger. He revealed a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "You're too kind. Brother Zhua, according to the agreement, this primordial stone's cultivation technique should be shared with me, right?" Zhua nodded. He and Ma Yujie had both sworn an oath to the heavenly Tao. Naturally, they could not easily go against their oath. Zhuan roughly browsed through the contents of the third primordial stone. This primordial stone had the word Hong written on its surface. It should be a Hong word stone. Within the Hong word stone, a series of obscure incantations automatically appeared in the depths of his divine soul. This incantation was extremely profound. Even for Zhuowen, he would need to spend a very long time to comprehend it. He took out a blank jade slip to copy the contents of the incantation into the jade slip. Several hours later, Zhuan finally copied all the incantations on the Hong word stone into the jade slip. He then handed the jade slip over to Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie received the jade slip and checked it repeatedly. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the contents, he kept the jade slip. "Brother Zhua, there should be a treasure land under this altar. How about we go down and explore together?" Ma Yujie pointed at the bottom of the shattered altar. There was a deep cave where the altar used to be. However, the cave entrance was not big. It could barely fit 3 to 4 people. Zhuan looked at Ma Yujie's fat body and sighed inwardly. Ma Yujie alone was equivalent to 2 people. If the 2 of them went in together, it would be too cramped. However, Zhuan was also very interested in the cave entrance. After the altar shattered, he vaguely felt a pure energy aura drifting out from the depths of the cave. This energy aura was extremely pure. There must be a lot of top-grade chaos spiritual veins hidden below. Both of them exchanged a glance and nodded. Both of them decided to explore the mysterious cave entrance. Both of them rushed into the cave entrance like a gust of wind. The cave entrance was pitch black, and they couldn't even see their own fingers. The moment both of them entered, they heard a series of howls. They knew that the cave entrance was filled with a shocking number of evil spirits. The corners of Mayujia's mouth curled up slightly. His body emitted a blazing light, and a strange energy surrounded him. Immediately, the evil spirits around him screamed in fear, not daring to come close to Mayujia. After forcing the evil spirits away, Mayujia's wretched eyes were filled with smugness. He couldn't help looking at Zhuan, thinking that Zhuan would have to spend some effort to force these evil spirits away. He was looking forward to seeing Zhuan make a fool of himself. Chapter 3956. What's going on with this kid? He actually refined the evil spirits for his own use. This doesn't seem like the primordial grandmist technique, does it? Mayujia muttered in his heart as he looked at Zhuan with a solemn expression. He felt like he couldn't see through Zhuan anymore. He had a piece of primordial grandmist stone in his possession, so he had comprehended the primordial grandmist technique before. He knew how the primordial grandmist technique worked. However, although the purple-gold light released by Zhuan contained traces of the primordial grandmist technique, it wasn't completely the primordial grandmist technique. Instead, it was a combination of other powerful techniques. Mayujia didn't expect that Zhuan wasn't just cultivating the primordial grandmist technique. He had already created his own technique that was suitable for him. His cultivation technique was based on the primordial grandmist technique as a foundation. He had continuously merged other powerful techniques to form a peerless cultivation technique, especially the universal scripture of heaven and earth and the universal scripture of growth. These two techniques allowed Zhuan to directly refine the evil spirits, which would aid his cultivation. This was an extremely heaven-defying characteristic. Zhuan naturally noticed Mayujia peeking at him, but he didn't mind. Mayujia was the same as him. They both had the primordial grandmist stone, and came from the mysterious primordial star system. Mayujia had many more secrets than him. Both of them knew their own secrets, and he knew that Mayujia wouldn't casually reveal his secrets in front of others. Naturally, he was the same. The deeper they went, the more evil spirits there were. As far as the eye could see, there were endless shadows of evil spirits. Mournful shrieks continuously gathered around them. Zhuan's expression was calm as the purple-gold aura around him turned into tiny vortexes. Any evil spirits that came close to him were absorbed by the vortexes, turning into the purest energy that entered Zhuan's acupuncture points. Billowing energy surged, and Zhuan felt his limbs and bones brimming with energy. His cultivation also rose continuously. Ever since Zhuan obtained the primordial chance cultivation technique from Mayujia, his cultivation was no longer shackled, and he could continue cultivating. His cultivation level was originally at the early stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. Now, as he went deeper into the cave, his cultivation level continued to increase. He was approaching the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. These are all top-grade chaos spiritual veins. After the two of them reached the bottom, Mayujia looked around in disbelief and couldn't help but exclaim. At the bottom of the cave, there was an extremely large grotto. On the walls of the grotto, rays of bright light shot out. These lights condensed into light dragons that constantly coiled and swam in the air. Surging to the extreme, they surged like a tidal wave, assaulting his face. The moment these energies came into contact with Zhuan's body, they actually liquefied and turned into drops of crystal-clear energy liquid. Zhuan casually took a breath, and rich energy flowed into his body, filling his limbs and bones, and increasing his cultivation. After a moment of daze, Zhuan and Mayujia pounced forward at the same time. They began to crazily grab the top-grade chaos spiritual veins hidden deep within the grotto. The two of them seemed to have gone crazy as they grabbed the top-grade chaos spiritual veins they saw. They didn't stop at all. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them had practically emptied all the top-grade chaos spiritual veins in the grotto. The grotto, which had been shining brightly due to the spiritual veins' brilliance, was now dark and gloomy. Maybe there are still treasures hidden in this grotto. Ma Yujia's eyes turned green, but he still wasn't satisfied. He continued to search the grotto, rummaging left and right. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was extremely calm. While he was collecting the top-grade chaos spiritual veins, he released his Yin divinity to search the entire grotto. Other than the top-grade chaos spiritual veins, there was nothing else in this grotto. Zhuowen saw that Ma Yujie was still rummaging left and right, and even entered the depths of the grotto. A light flickered in his eyes, and he quietly left the grotto, flying upwards. Zhuowen executed the Grand Mist movement art at full speed. His speed was so fast that only a purple afterimage could be seen. He had never forgotten the small hill at the bottom of the lake. If his guess was right, that small hill should be a treasure much more precious than the heart of stars. After all, the divine splendor that small hill emitted was enough to force Zhuowen and Ma Yujie to use a rank 5 astral weapon. From this, it could be seen that the small hill was definitely not simple. After leaving the grotto, Zhuowen immediately set up layers of traps at the grotto's entrance. As long as Ma Yujie came out, he would definitely trigger the traps. After setting up the traps, Zhuowen moved swiftly. He passed through the world of ice, the blue grassland, the barren plains, and finally returned to the absolute beginning grotto's entrance. At the same time, he spent a lot of time setting up extremely complicated and terrifying traps at the absolute beginning grotto's entrance. After he was done, Zhuowen revealed a satisfied expression. He left the absolute beginning grotto and came to the shore of the lake. The purple gold sword embryo was like the most loyal bodyguard as it revolved around his body. But Zhuowen jumped into the lake without hesitation. Countless specks of starlight dust rushed over like maggots, wanting to wrap around Zhuowen. However, these specks of starlight dust were blocked by the purple gold sword embryo's sword chi. They couldn't pass through at all. Before long, Zhuowen reached the bottom of the lake and saw the small hill at the bottom of the lake. Ever since this small hill lost the heart of stars, it no longer emitted any divine splendor. It looked just like an ordinary hill. However, Zhuowen could sense the extremely terrifying energy radiating from the surface of the small hill. Although the energy was not powerful, it was extremely terrifying. It actually made Zhuowen's hair stand on end. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He summoned his Yin spirit and began to observe the small hill. At the same time, he used the purple gold sword embryo as a medium to come into contact with the small hill. He planned to directly refine the small hill and take it for his own use. But what shocked Zhuowen was that the moment his power came into contact with the small hill suddenly buzzed, and then like a whale sucking in water, it began to madly absorb the energy in his body. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He felt disbelief. The speed at which the small hill absorbed energy had reached an unbelievable level. His flesh and blood actually shriveled at a visible rate. His essence, blood, and energy were all being absorbed by the small hill. Shit, don't tell me it's going to suck me dry. Zhuowen's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to pull his hand away, but the suction force was so strong that he couldn't move. Zhuowen was helpless. He knew that it was impossible for him to escape. He began to madly absorb the numerous top-grade chaos spiritual veins he had just obtained. He could only continue to absorb the chaos spiritual veins' energy. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to withstand the suction force and would really turn into a dried corpse. While Zhuowen was in a predicament, Ma Yujie walked out from the depths of the absolute beginning cave while cursing. What a waste of this Lord Fatty's feelings. There's actually nothing else. Ma Yujie walked to the center of the cave and realized that something was wrong. He didn't see Zhuowen's figure anywhere. His divine sense suddenly radiated outwards, but Zhuowen's figure was nowhere to be found. Not good. That kid didn't go to the bottom of the lake outside the absolute beginning cave, right? Damn it, he actually has designs on that small hill. This is unforgivable. Chapter 3957. Boom, boom. A terrifying explosion was set off from the entrance of the grotto. The powerful shockwave was like a ring-shaped ripple that spread out in all directions. Ma Yujie's fat body was blown away by the energy of the explosions. He rolled around like a kicked ball, and his entire body was charred black. Fuck, you damned bastard, you actually tricked me, Ma Yujia cried out miserably as he resisted the terrifying energy ripples from the trap. He cursed as spittle flew everywhere. After about a quarter of an hour, the explosion of the trap finally subsided, and an incomparably charred fat body fell to the ground in a sorry state. Ma Yujia crawled to his feet. His entire body was charred black, and the fragrance of meat wafted from him. Fortunately, his body was extremely resilient. His wounds gradually healed after a while, and his charred flesh grew back. Ma Yujia's face sank. The trap that Juan had set up at the entrance of the cave was not particularly terrifying. If he had been prepared beforehand, he would not have ended up in such a sorry state. The trap might not have even been able to harm him. However, he had been too confident. He had never thought that Juan would play such a dirty trick on him. As a result, he had stepped into the trap without any preparation. Naturally, the outcome was extremely tragic. Juan, you bastard, you actually tricked me like that. Well done, I'll definitely kill you. After Ma Yujia cursed for a while, he finally calmed down. After tidying up his clothes, he left the area. When he passed through the boundaries of the various worlds in the absolute beginning cave, Ma Yujia was extremely cautious. He was afraid that Juon had set up another trap. He understood the little bastard Juon far too well. This bastard definitely would not trick him just once. As long as he could trick him, this bastard would definitely try to trick him to his death. He would not even have to pay for it if he tricked him to death. Ma Yujia passed through the world of ice, the blue plains, and the barren plains. However, what puzzled him was that he did not discover any traps at the boundaries of the various worlds. Looks like this guy is in a hurry to get to the bottom of the pool. He plans on taking the hill away, so he only set up a trap. Ma Yujia muttered to himself. The vigilance in his heart had also greatly relaxed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. His pace also became much faster. He was also extremely anxious. When he had seized the heart of the stars, he had noticed the small hill that contained the heart of the stars. He dared to conclude that the small hill was definitely not simple. At the very least, its value was much higher than the heart of stars. At that time, because Yun was present, he was too embarrassed to take it. He had originally planned to explore the absolute beginning cave and then secretly head to the bottom of the pool. However, what he did not expect was that Jun had also discovered that the small hill was not ordinary and had even left before him. This made Ma Yujia very annoyed. Why didn't he take a good look at this Jun at that time? After Ma Yujia left the barren plains, he entered the passageway that led to the absolute beginning cave. Ma Yujia had been thinking about the small hill at the bottom of the lake, so his running speed was extremely fast, almost to the point where even his afterimage could not be seen. After a while, Ma Yujia rushed to the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. His gaze was still fixed on the small pool not far from the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. A look of anxiety appeared in his eyes. He could not wait to dive into the pool and reach the bottom of the pool to see if the small hill was still at the bottom. I hope that the small hill is still at the bottom of the pool. This thing belongs to this fat lord. Jun is not qualified to have it. Ma Yujia's eyes turned green. His heart was full of resentment toward Jun. 2 of the 3 hearts of the stars had been taken by Jun. The 3rd primordial stone had also been taken by Jun. Now that he had his eyes on the small hill, if Jun took it away, wouldn't he have suffered a great loss in this trip to Fallen Star Mountain? In the blink of an eye, Ma Yujia rushed to the entrance of the cave. At this moment, his expression changed completely. Boom boom boom. At the entrance of the absolute beginning cave, the traps that Juon had set up earlier were completely detonated by Ma Yujia. Terrifying explosive energy swept out like waves, drowning Ma Yujia in an instant. His grandfather, bastard? I'm not done with you. Ma Yujia's shrill screams mixed with venomous curses reverberated at the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. He was really too sullen. He had clearly fallen into the trap once, and he had been very cautious. But he had actually fallen into the trap again just as he was about to leave the absolute beginning cave. While the unlucky Ma Yujia was hovering between life and death due to the traps at the entrance of the absolute beginning cave, Un was still at the bottom of the pool. his body was shriveled and he looked like a bag of bones. He looked extremely haggard. The suction force from the small hill was too terrifying. If it weren't for him continuously absorbing the top-grade chaos spiritual veins in the great world, he would have turned into a lifeless corpse by now. Even so, the close to 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins that he had snatched from the depths of the absolute beginning cave were nearly depleted by him. Yuan was horrified. He knew that he would turn into a dried corpse in an instant if he didn't replenish his energy. Thinking of this, a light flickered in Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that after absorbing all the top-grade chaos spiritual veins, he would need to absorb the star core. Although the star core was extremely valuable, much more valuable than 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, Yuan couldn't afford to hesitate. After all, his life was more important. Finally, all the top-grade chaos spiritual veins were depleted. Yuan had no choice but to start absorbing the star core's energy. Such pure energy! Zhuowen's eyes lit up in disbelief. The star core's energy was extremely pure. The moment it entered his body, it spread rapidly to his limbs and bones. His shriveled body actually became more nourished, and his complexion looked better than before. At the same time, Yuan also noticed that the small hill's suction force was gradually weakening. Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, this small hill wasn't a bottomless pit. He just didn't know what would happen to this small hill after absorbing so much of his energy. Finally, the small hill's suction force disappeared completely. Then, Zhuowen saw that the small hill's size was gradually shrinking, and it eventually turned into a palm-sized seal. This seal's outer appearance was similar to the small hill, and at the bottom of the seal, there were 3 simple but majestic words: Grand Emperor's Seal. Grand Emperor's Seal, Zhuowen muttered under his breath. He could feel an extremely heavy and powerful aura from this seal. This aura was much stronger than the purple gold sword embryo in his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The purple gold sword embryo that had been revolving around Zhuowen issued a buzzing sound in fear. It trembled as if it was afraid of the seal in Zhuowen's hand. Chapter 3958. Zhuowen was bewildered. Could it be that the Grand Emperor's seal was still in a muddle-headed state, and had awakened after absorbing his energy and blood essence? Could it be that it felt a strong sense of intimacy towards him? Even though Zhuowen wasn't sure of the exact reason, since the Grand Emperor's seal was so close to him, it was naturally a good thing. However, there was one thing that made Zhuowen feel helpless. Even though the Grand Emperor's seal was close to him, he was rejected by the Grand Emperor's seal's artifact spirit when he tried to control it. It was as if the Grand Emperor's seal didn't like to be controlled by others. Zhuowen shook his head. The Grand Emperor's seal was too mysterious, and it would take him some time to figure it out. It was better for him to leave this place first. I wonder if Ma Yujie realized that I'm not here and chased after me. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he flew up. He continued to absorb the energy from the Heart of Stars, and his shriveled flesh began to glow with vitality. His complexion also became rosier. It seemed like Ma Yujie was right. The Heart of Stars was indeed the best cultivation treasure. The energy contained in this small piece of Heart of Stars was equivalent to 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, but the quality of the energy was much purer than a top-grade chaos spiritual vein. After Zhuowen flew out of the pond, his flesh and blood had completely recovered. He no longer looked like a lifeless corpse. At the same time, Zhuowen discovered that less than 1/10 of the Heart of Stars had been consumed. Goddamn Zhuowen, you really snuck into the pond to get that little hill. You bastard, despicable bastard, incomparably treacherous bastard, scum that deserves to be cut into 1,000 pieces. Just as Zhuowen flew out of the pond, he discovered that not far away, a charred ball of flesh was rolling towards him. This ball of flesh opened its eyes with great difficulty and glared hatefully at Zhuowen, cursing and swearing. Zhuowen looked at the charred ball of flesh in confusion and asked, "Fellow Taoist, who are you?" After being silent for a long time, Ma Yujie finally exploded. "Fuck you bastard! You just tricked me to death, and now you're pretending not to know me? You scum, you bastard, you bastard!" Ma Yujie was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He immediately took out the red bracelet in his hand and fiercely smashed it at Zhuan. Zhuan reacted very quickly. The moment Ma Yujie took out the red bracelet, he used his movement technique and retreated dozens of miles away. So it's Brother Ma. Brother Ma, what happened to you? Who did this to you? It's too outrageous. Zhuan shook his head, his face full of disappointment. Ma Yujie was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Wasn't it all because of a bastard like you that I ended up like this? Boom. He summoned the crimson bracelet and threw it at Zhuan. Instantly, crimson light filled the sky, dyeing the entire sky a rich crimson color. It was as if the sun was setting in the west, and the sky was burning with fire. Zhuan's face changed slightly. He took out the purple gold sword embryo and slashed out fiercely. Streaks of purple gold sword chi blasted out, condensing into a terrifying sword mark that stretched between heaven and earth. The two collided, and the entire fallen star mountain shook violently. There were waves of earth quaking and mountains shaking. It was very terrifying. Zhuan let out a muffled groan as he was sent flying backwards. Borrowing the force of his fall, he quickly retreated. His body changed direction and rushed out of the range of fallen star mountain. Before he left, he called back the purple gold sword embryo and laughed. Brother Ma, don't be so angry. Be careful not to hurt your liver. Today's cooperation between you and me is perfect. Farewell, we'll meet again in the future. Ma Yujie let out a muffled groan and also retreated a distance before stabilizing his body. When he heard Zhuan's laughter, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and cursed, Bastard, I'm breaking off all ties with you. When I see you in the future, I'll beat you up until your parents can't recognize you. After Zhuan left Fallen Star Mountain, he entered the dark abyss and quickly left. He didn't dare to stay here for long. Although Ma Yujie was tricked by him, his strength was still there. It was difficult to deal with him. Naturally, he couldn't be entangled with Ma Yujie for too long. After completely leaving the dark abyss, he quietly left this place. When he was far enough away from Fallen Star Mountain, he took out the divine ship and headed towards the Carefree Manor. After he handed over the control of the divine ship to Xiao He, he immediately went into seclusion. He had obtained the cultivation method of the primordial technique and the heart of stars. Wouldn't it be a waste if he didn't go into seclusion? 3 days later, the divine ship arrived at the Carefree Manor. Fallen Star Mountain was too far away from Hongwu Shenzhen. Naturally, it was impossible to use the divine ship to fly back to Hongwu Shenzhen. There was an ancient teleportation array in the Carefree Manor. It was enough to bring Zhuan back to Hongwu Shenzhen. After 3 days of cultivation, Zhuan had absorbed 1/3 of the heart of stars. His cultivation had also successfully broken through to the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. His strength had increased exponentially. When Zhuan's divine ship landed in the Carefree Manor, everyone in the manor became nervous. Everyone looked at Zhuan with shock and uncertainty. Ask the person in charge of the Carefree Manor to come out. Zhuan sneered in his heart. He naturally knew why these people were so shocked. They must be shocked that he was still alive. Zhuan's voice wasn't loud, but it spread across the entire Carefree Manor like thunder. After a while, an old man in blue walked out with a few people. When he saw Zhuan, his face darkened. Daowen, you entered Fallen Star Mountain with the Manor Lord. The Manor Lord and the others haven't come out, but you came out. What's going on? Did you abandon the Manor Lord and the others? The old man in blue shouted coldly. Zhuan knew the old man in blue. Ren Rong had introduced him to Zhuan. He was the second elder of the Carefree Manor. His strength was at the early stage of the God Domain transformation realm. Ren Xiaoyao had asked him to stay behind to guard the manor. Manor Lord Ren was unfortunately killed in Fallen Star Mountain. I was lucky enough to escape with my life. Now that my mission has failed, I don't plan to stay here. Go and activate the teleportation array. I plan to return to Hongwu Shenzhen. Zhuan said indifferently. The old man in blue narrowed his eyes and then shouted angrily, Nonsense! The Manor Lord is an expert at the middle stage of the God Domain transformation realm. No matter how terrifying Fallen Star Mountain is, it can't kill the Manor Lord and the others. It must be you who sneakily attacked the Manor Lord and the others and buried them in Fallen Star Mountain. How dare you? Do you really think that just because you're a disciple of Hongwu Shengzhen, we won't dare to do anything to you? I'll take you down today. After killing you, I'll report to Hongwu Shengzhen and accuse you of crimes. After saying that, the old man in blue's eyes were filled with killing intent. He immediately attacked Zhuowen. Before Ren Xiaoyao left, he had told him that after they entered Fallen Star Mountain, they planned to kill Zhuowen in Fallen Star Mountain. Chapter 3959. The blue-clothed old man's aura was like a rainbow. He floated in the air in front of Zhuowen like a god. He looked down at Zhuowen with eyes full of arrogance and disdain. He did not take Zhuowen seriously at all. After all, Zhuowen was just an outer disciple of Hongwu Shengzhen. In his eyes, Zhuowen was like an ant. Zhuowen's eyes gradually darkened. He thought that Ren Xiaoyao had a backup plan and would not stop until Zhuowen was dead. Get lost. Otherwise, you will die. This is your only chance to live now. Zhuowen did not want to be entangled with the blue-robed elder. The aura of the middle stage of yin-yang change surged out like a storm and rushed into the sky. The terrifying power of yin-yang rushed up and formed a huge yin-yang pattern above his head. The blue-robed elder's eyelids twitched. The aura released by Zhuowen was so terrifying that it made his heart beat wildly. However, the blue-robed elder was completely relieved when he found that Zhuowen was only in the yin-yang change realm. It was just the yin-yang change realm. So what if his aura was powerful? How could he be a match for him? Die! The blue-robed elder's eyes were full of killing intent. His right palm was like a mountain and suddenly slammed down from the sky. The rumbling sound of thunder resounded throughout the sky above Carefree Manor. Many cultivators of Carefree Manor had completely scattered before the blue-robed elder made his move. They did not dare to approach him. The moment the blue-robed elder made his move, his own divine domain appeared around him. His god territory was a barren desert. This barren desert was filled with terrifying sandstorms that seemed to stretch across the world. Zhuowen was swept into this divine domain. He immediately felt his body heat up. The violent sandstorms swept across, leaving behind a scene of devastation. It was extremely terrifying. Zhuowen stood in the divine domain, unmoved. The yin-yang pattern above his head turned into the yin-yang god. The two gods merged into his body, causing his aura to reach an extremely terrifying level. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Zhuowen took a step forward, his aura heavy and powerful, causing the entire divine realm to tremble violently. Then he shot out like an arrow from a bow, piercing through the numerous sandstorms. The blue-clothed elder stood in the air above the sandstorm. His right hand slapped down, and a huge palm energy fell, blasting toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen coldly snorted and punched out. Countless weapon phantoms shot out, and the energy hand was smashed to pieces by his punch. What? You're just a yin-yang transformation cultivator? How can you be so powerful? The blue-clothed old man was shocked when Zhuowen's fist smashed the energy hand into pieces. A trace of fear rose in his heart, and he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Ignorant, Zhuowen's eyes were cold. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he appeared in front of the blue-robed elder. His right fist suddenly blasted out and smashed towards the blue-robed elder's face. The blue-clothed elder was still in a state of shock. He didn't even have time to react to block the attack before his face was pierced through by Zhuowen's fist. Blood splattered across the sky. The blue-clothed elder's head exploded, and his spiritual soul was destroyed. He turned into a headless corpse, falling from the sky and landing heavily in the middle of the courtyard of Carefree Mountain Villa. The heavy sound of the body falling completely awakened all the cultivators of Carefree Mountain Villa. Their eyes were filled with fear. The blue-clothed elder was the second elder of Carefree Mountain Villa. He was the true expert of Carefree Mountain Villa. Even the blue-clothed elder was killed by this young man in one move. Who else in Carefree Mountain Villa could stop this young man? You think the same as this elder? You think that I'm the cause of the death of your Carefree Mountain Villa's villa master, so I deserve to die? Zhuowen floated in the air, looking down at everyone in Carefree Mountain Villa. All the cultivators who met his gaze lowered their heads, not daring to look at Jun. Their hearts were trembling. "Sir, this has nothing to do with you. The second elder acted on his own and insisted on attacking you. You were absolutely right to kill him." A burly middle-aged man suddenly knelt on the ground. His eyes were filled with fear. He completely submitted to Zhuowen and did not dare to resist. The moment this man knelt, the other cultivators of Carefree Mountain Villa also knelt on the ground, trembling. They knew very well that Zhuowen could easily kill the blue-clothed elder. Naturally, he could also easily destroy the entire Carefree Mountain Villa. Zhuowen looked down at everyone. Seeing them kneel and worship him, his heart was as calm as an ancient well. This was the way the world was. If you were strong, you were the rules. If you were strong, you were respected. If you were strong, you were everything. I want to use the ancient teleportation formation of Carefree Mountain Villa. Zhuowen said indifferently. The middle-aged man, who was the first to kneel, quickly raised his head and put on a fawning expression. He said to Zhuowen, "Sir, I can help you activate the ancient teleportation formation." Zhuowen nodded and said, "Then I'll use you." With that, Zhuowen landed beside the middle-aged man. He lifted him up and flew into the huge courtyard in the depths of Carefree Mountain Villa. This courtyard was where the Carefree Mountain Villa's ancient teleportation formation was located. The courtyard was cold and cheerless. There was no one in sight except for the ancient teleportation formation at the center of the courtyard. The mottled patterns on the ancient teleportation formation indicated its age and vicissitudes. "Go activate the ancient teleportation formation," Zhuowen instructed. The middle-aged man quickly nodded and bowed. He took out pieces of top-grade Chaos Spirit stones and placed them in the grooves beside the ancient teleportation formation. Then, his hands formed complicated seals to activate the ancient teleportation formation. In an instant, the dim ancient teleportation formation lit up with a blazing white light. Strands of law patterns formed chains that circled around the ancient teleportation formation. Divine light soared to the sky, and it was hard to look at directly. "Sir, the ancient teleportation formation is ready." The middle-aged man smiled fawningly. Zhuowen nodded and stepped into the ancient teleportation formation. Then, the middle-aged man activated the ancient teleportation formation. In an instant, the ancient teleportation formation emitted a blinding white light that soared into the sky. After the white light subsided, the ancient teleportation formation returned to normal. Zhuowen, who had been standing at the center of the ancient teleportation formation, was nowhere to be seen. "I've finally sent away that malefic star." The middle-aged man wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled wryly. He was really afraid that Zhuowen would slaughter the entire Carefree Mountain Villa in a fit of rage. Now that Zhuowen had left, the middle-aged man could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Zhuowen felt his body shuttling back and forth at high speed, and a numbing sensation spread throughout his body. When the numbing sensation disappeared completely, Huang Xiaolong landed on the ground. He opened his eyes and saw that he was in the Hongwu Shengzhen's ancient teleportation formation. "It's you!" The old man guarding the ancient teleportation formation shuddered the moment he saw Zhuowen. Fear flashed in his eyes. This old man was the person responsible for transporting Zhuowen to the Carefree Mountain Villa when he had first left the Hongwu Shengzhen. Chapter 3960. Zhuowen ignored the old man and walked straight out of the ancient teleportation circle. He did not plan to go to the mission hall. Although he had obtained the Heart of Stars, it did not match the content of the mission, so he had failed the mission. However, he did not care. He had entered Fallen Star Mountain not for the mission, but for the primordial stone. He had gained a lot this time. Not only had he obtained the primordial stone, but he had also obtained the Tai Emperor's seal and 2 Heart of Stars. The value of these rewards was many times higher than the reward for completing the mission. When Zhuowen returned to the outer sect mountain, he happened to see Li Xinbing and Zi Ling coming down from the mountain. When the 2 girls saw Zhuowen, they were pleasantly surprised. "Brother Daowen, you came back safe and sound." Li Xinbing's beautiful eyes lit up. Zhuowen nodded. She looked at the 2 women in confusion and asked, Junior sisters, where are you planning to go? Ziling smiled and said, we are going to Hongwu Square. Brother, you may not know, but the 4th Shenzhen tournament is coming soon. This time, Hongwu Square will be holding an internal tournament. Hongwu Shenzhen plans to choose 10 outstanding disciples from the inner and outer sect disciples to go to Qinghuan Shenzhen to participate in the tournament. Li Xinbing was also quite excited. I heard that if we perform well in the 4th Shenzhen tournament, our outer sect will have a chance to be promoted to inner sect. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. He was not interested in the 4th Shenzhen. The 4th Shenzhen tournament was the best opportunity for Zhuowen to save Hong Shenwu. He could not participate in the tournament. Senior brother Daowen, your strength is so strong. If you can participate in this 4 sacred sects martial arts competition, you will definitely shine. Ziling raised her head and said expectantly. Li Xinbing also looked at Zhuowen expectantly. Both she and Ziling knew how powerful Zhuowen was. Even most of Hongwu Shenzhen's inner disciples might not necessarily be a match for Zhuowen. Zhuowen shook his head and said, I won't be going to the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. I've been comprehending something recently, so I plan to go into seclusion for a period of time. With that, Zhuowen bid farewell to the 2 women and continued to climb. Li Xinbing and Ziling couldn't help but be stunned. They didn't expect Zhuowen to not participate in the 4 Shenzhen martial arts tournament. This was a great opportunity for a carp to leap over the dragon's gate. However, the 2 women also knew that once Zhuowen decided on something, it was useless for them to persuade him. When they thought of this, the 2 women sighed softly and left the outer court mountain. After Zhuowen returned to the cave, he began to concentrate on absorbing the energy of the heart of stars. He estimated that after completely absorbing the energy of the heart of stars, his cultivation should be able to reach the peak of the yin-yang change, and maybe even the God realm change. For the next month, Zhuowen basically stayed in the cave and cultivated. During this period, Ziling and Li Xinbing came to visit several times, but when they saw that Zhuowen didn't come out of seclusion, they left resentfully. Even Luo Lingyu came to visit Zhuowen once. On this day, Zhuowen slowly opened the door of the cave. His eyes were shining brightly, and there was an ethereal and vast aura around him. After cultivating in seclusion for a month and completely refining the heart of stars, I still can't break through to the God realm change? Zhuowen shook his head, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. After absorbing the energy of the first heart of stars, his cultivation had only reached the peak of the yin-yang change. Even though he couldn't break through to the God realm change, Zhuowen could feel that he was very close to the God realm change. It wasn't appropriate to say that he was at the peak of the yin-yang change. It should be said that he had taken half a step into the God realm. He should be half a step into the God realm. Zhuowen's strength had reached an unfathomable level. He didn't need to rely on the purple gold sword embryo to fight a peak God realm change expert, and he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. From this, one could see how terrifying his battle strength was. After coming out of seclusion, Zhuowen planned to head to the valley where the Great Speech Incantation Forest was located to look for his master, Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun had told him that she had the ability to search the entire 100 regions with the soul language technique. However, she needed 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins to do so. This kind of consumption was extremely terrifying. Even though Zhuowen had found 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, he had exhausted all of them. However, he still had the Heart of Stars. With the surging energy from the Heart of Stars, the effect was much better than 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins. If Shan Lingyun used the Heart of Stars, she would be able to use a more powerful soul language technique to find the Moyan of Wushang's location. When Zhuowen walked out of the outer sect's mountain peak, planning to leave the Hongwu Shenzhen, he coincidentally ran into Luo Lingyu at the Shenzhen's entrance. Luo Lingyu was walking beside a man and woman with a respectful and reserved expression on her face. Zhuowen looked at the man and woman with a dumbfounded expression. He also knew these 2 people. The woman was none other than Jing Lianmeng, who had walked together with Luo Lingyu at the Hongwu Square. Jing Lianmeng's face was frosty, and she was extremely arrogant. She looked at everyone with disdain, as if she was a high and mighty god, and everyone else were useless mortals. The other man was Jing Lianming's Dao companion, Mo Hongxian. He was also the Blue Luan Shengzhen's inner sect's #1 disciple. His strength was extraordinary, and it was said that he had reached the half-step God realm transformation. At the same time, Yuan also saw the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group not far from the entrance. A huge divine ship stood not far away, and it seemed like the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group was planning to leave. In front of the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group was the Hongwu Shengzhen's group. The leader of the Hongwu Shengzhen's group was the Dragon Elephant Hall's elder, Pei Shanglong. The Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance training was presided over by Pei Shanglong. Brother Pei will part here. Your Hongwu Shengzhen's outer and inner disciples are not bad. Our Blue Luan Shengzhen has benefited greatly this time. The leader of the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group was an old man. He smiled and cupped his hands towards Pei Shanglong. Pei Shanglong's expression was not good. The Blue Luan Shengzhen's inner sect's #1 disciple, Mo Hongxian, had defeated almost all of their Hongwu Shengzhen's inner sect's disciples. Hongwu Shengzhen's face had been completely disgraced. At the same time, Pei Shanglong was extremely worried. In a month's time, the 4 Shengzhen competition would begin. Even the Blue Luan Shengzhen had produced such a powerful Mo Hongxian. The other Shengzhen's members would not be weak either. Would their Hongwu Shengzhen end up at the bottom? Junior brother Daowen. Luo Lingyu, who was standing beside Jing Lianming, saw Zhuan walking out of the sect's entrance. She could not help but happily greet Zhuan. Jing Lianming and Mo Hongxian could not help but look at Zhuan. Mo Hongxian only glanced at Zhuowen once before withdrawing his gaze. Zhuowen was wearing the uniform of an outer sect disciple, and his aura was faintly discernible. In his eyes, this kind of trash didn't even deserve a glance. Chapter 3961. Luo Lingyu frowned slightly. She did not expect Jing Lianmeng to dislike Zhuowen so much. Although Zhuowen was only an outer disciple of Hongwu Shengzhen, and his status was far lower than theirs, he was still an old acquaintance of hers. Jing Lianmeng was meddling in her affairs. She was being too nosy. Thinking of this, Luo Lingyu said seriously, "Senior sister Jing, junior brother Daowen is an old friend of mine, and we have a good relationship. I can't dislike him just because of his low status. And I think that people should not forget their roots." After saying that, Luo Lingyu ignored Jing Lianmeng and walked toward Zhuowen. Jing Lianmeng looked at Luo Lingyu's back in disbelief. Ever since she entered the sect, Luo Lingyu had been respectful to her and had never disobeyed her. But now, Luo Lingyu was mocking her because of this guy. She really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Jing Lianmeng was furious. Junior sister Luo must have been bewitched by this outer disciple. She actually dared to go against you for him. Mo Hongxuan's eyes were gloomy. He was also very dissatisfied with Luo Lingyu's disobedience. His gaze toward Zhuan became more and more unpleasant. "Lianmeng, do you need me to teach this guy a lesson for you?" Mo Hongxian asked coldly. Jing Lianmeng's face was cold. She shook her head and said, "There is no need to trouble senior brother. He is just an outer disciple trash. I can easily teach him a lesson." Mo Hongxian nodded. Jing Lianmeng's cultivation was not weak. She was at the middle stage of the yin-yang change realm. It was naturally easy for her to teach an outer disciple a lesson. After all, Nguyen was just an outer disciple. He was too ordinary, so his appearance did not attract anyone's attention. Even Pei Shanglong and the others only glanced at Zhuan casually before retracting their gazes. "Junior brother Daowen, you are finally out. When you were in seclusion, I came to see you once." Luo Lingyu walked up to Zhuowen and said with her beautiful eyes shining. Zhuowen said apologetically, "Senior sister Luo, I am so sorry. I did not expect you to come to see me. If I had known, I would have come out immediately." Luo Lingyu waved her hand and chuckled. "Don't worry, it's just a small matter. I met the 2 women who were with you before, and I heard them say that you don't intend to participate in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition?" Luo Lingyu was quite curious. Although she did not know Zhuowen's exact cultivation level, he should not be weak. He should be more than capable of participating in the 4 Shengzhen martial arts competition. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "That kind of competition is meaningless to me, so I don't plan to participate." Just as Yun and Luo Lingyu were chatting, an untimely voice interrupted their conversation. An outer sect trash like you has the face to say that the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition is meaningless. You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I think you're just scared and don't dare to participate. You're just finding a dignified excuse for yourself. Isn't it a little disgusting? Zhuan narrowed his eyes and slowly turned his head to look at Jing Lianmeng, who had appeared beside Luo Lingyu. He did not refute, or rather, he did not intend to lower himself to Jing Lianmeng's level. Senior Sister Luo, I still have some things to do, so I'll take my leave now. If there's time in the future, we'll contact each other again. Zhuan cupped his hands at Luo Lingyu and was about to leave. Luo Lingyu also quickly nodded. Jing Lianmeng's sudden appearance made her feel strange. She could feel that Jing Lianmeng was deliberately targeting Zhuan. If she continued to talk with Zhuan, it would not be a good thing, so she agreed to let Zhuan leave first. However, Jing Lianmeng obviously did not want to let Zhuan go so easily. Just as Zhuan was about to leave, Jing Lianmeng blocked his way. Her beautiful eyes looked at Zhuan presumptuously, and her eyebrows were filled with arrogance and disdain. I've heard Junior Sister Luo mention you before. You're called Dao Wen, and like Junior Sister Luo, you're from the Wukong state. I don't care what your relationship was in the past, but you have to know that you're just an insignificant outer disciple of the Hangu Shenzhen. And Junior Sister Luo is an inner disciple of our Blue Phoenix Shenzhen. The two of you, one is in the sky and the other is on the ground. You're not even from the same world. So, you'd better not contact Junior Sister Luo anymore. Outer disciple trash like you is not worthy of contacting Junior Sister Luo, let alone talking to her. Do you understand? Jing Lianmeng's beautiful eyes were filled with arrogance. She looked at Zhuan from head to toe, and the words she said were extremely vicious and disdainful. Zhuan frowned, and he coldly looked at the ice beauty in front of him. He did not seem to have offended this girl from the beginning to the end. However, this girl always targeted him and even insulted him as outer disciple trash. Did she really think that he, Zhuan, was easy to bully? I don't need you to talk about my matters. Now get lost. Zhuan slowly said, and his voice was filled with an unquestionable tone. Jing Lianmeng was completely stunned. She looked at Zhuan in disbelief. This lowly outer disciple in front of her actually dared to speak to her like this. Wasn't he seeking his own death? Luo Lingyu saw that the atmosphere between the two was so heavy, and hurriedly came out to smooth things over. Senior Sister Jing, Dao Wen is my friend. I hope you can give me face and not pursue him. Jing Lianmeng sneered and said, Junior Sister Luo, don't protect this trash. This outer disciple is too arrogant. If we don't teach him a lesson, won't he take advantage of us? Mo Hongxian walked out and stopped Luo Lingyu. He smiled and said, Junior Sister Luo, don't worry about this matter. Let Lianmeng handle it. Luo Lingyu's beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety, but Mo Hongxuan's aura had locked onto her. If she acted rashly, it was very likely that Mo Hongxian would attack her. After all, Mo Hongxian was the #1 inner disciple of the Blue Phoenix Shenzhen. He was much stronger than her. If Mo Hongxian attacked, there was no way she would have the chance to help Zhuan. Zhuan slowly raised his head and coldly looked at the frosty Jing Lianmeng in front of him. He said, I have no enmity with you, but you repeatedly obstructed me and even insulted me. Do you really think I don't have a temper? Jing Lianmeng was startled, and then she sneered again and again. The aura of the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation erupted and crushed on Zhuan like a mountain. You're just an outer disciple. What right do you have to be angry with me? An ant like you should obediently accept my punishment. It's your honor that I'm looking for trouble with you. As Jing Lianmeng spoke, her jade-like hand suddenly slapped toward Zhuan's cheek. Her eyes were full of disdain. Pa! Chapter 3962. Jing Lianmeng was completely dumbfounded. She didn't expect that she would be slapped by a mere outer disciple. How could she bear it? You're courting death. I'll kill you. Jing Lianmeng screamed, her eyes filled with blazing killing intent. The yin and yang energy in her body suddenly surged out, and her whole body was filled with extremely terrifying energy ripples. Kill me? You're not qualified to do that. Zhuan shook his head and slapped out with his left hand. Suddenly, the yin and yang energy around Jing Lianmeng's body was easily dispersed by his slap. This slap was ruthlessly imprinted on Jing Lianmeng's cheek. Jing Lianmeng spun a few rounds in the air and spat out a mouthful of blood. If one looked carefully, one would see that the blood was mixed with several teeth. Plop. Jing Lianmeng fell to the ground in a sorry state. Her cheeks were completely red and swollen, and she almost fainted. Mo Hongxian, who was originally blocking Luo Lingyu, heard the commotion behind him and couldn't help but turn around. When he saw that Jing Lianmeng had fainted, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Luo Lingyu also revealed a surprised expression. Jing Lianmeng was a yin-yang transformation middle-stage expert, and her strength was definitely not weak. However, she was actually knocked unconscious by Zhuowen's 2 slaps. Just how strong was Zhuowen? Thinking of this, Luo Lingyu's heart was filled with complicated feelings. She remembered that Yun was also very strong, but not to this extent. Blue Luan Shengzhen and Hangu Shengzhen, who were still exchanging pleasantries, were naturally attracted by the commotion over at Zhuowen's side. When the old man led by Blue Luan Shengzhen saw that Jing Lianmeng had been slapped unconscious by Zhuowen, his face suddenly became a little ugly. Pei Shanglong frowned slightly. He looked at Zhuowen and his heart trembled slightly. He had some impression of this young man in front of him. He was one of the disciples who had participated in the entrance trial not long ago. However, Pei Shanglong had not expected that this disciple, whom he did not care much about at the beginning, would be able to easily knock out Jing Lianmeng. Pei Shanglong naturally knew of Jing Lianmeng. She was an inner disciple of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen. Her talent and strength were not bad, but she had defeated many of their Hangu Shengzhen's inner disciples. Pei Shanglong silently looked at Zhuowen, his eyes revealing a look of great interest. It seemed that he had misjudged him. This young man was not simple. Mo Hongxian's face was ugly. He helped the unconscious Jing Lianmeng up and looked coldly at Yin, saying, "How dare you injure my junior sister? You're just an outer sect disciple, who gave you the guts?" Wen was so angry that he laughed. This Mo Hongxian was really shameless. It was clearly Jing Lianmeng who attacked him first. Could it be that he was just going to stand there and let Jing Lianmeng hit him without any resistance? A good dog doesn't block the way. If you don't scram, I'll kill you. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. These two people had made things difficult for him time and time again. Even a clay figurine would get angry, let alone him. Good. How dare you threaten to kill me? Then don't blame me for killing you. Mo Hongxian's eyes were filled with murderous intent, his heart was filled with anger. This ant in front of him dared to act recklessly. After knocking out his Dao companion, he even threatened to kill him if he didn't scram. What right did he have to say such words to him? Mo Hongxian put Jing Lianmeng aside and floated in the air. The terrifying aura of a half-step god realm instantly burst out from his body. A terrifying pressure spread out, causing the surrounding atmosphere to become very heavy. Luo Lingyu frowned. She felt that Mo Hongxian was completely unreasonable. Just as she was about to speak, Blue Phoenix Shengzhen and the others had already arrived beside her. "Lingyu, what's going on here? Why did this Hangu Shengzhen's outer disciple have a conflict with you?" The old man from Blue Phoenix Shengzhen asked with a frown. Luo Lingyu heaved a sigh of relief and recounted everything that had happened earlier. She said, "Elder Wu, this has nothing to do with junior brother Daowen. It's senior brother Mo and senior sister Jing who were overbearing. That's why things ended up like this." The old man frowned and said, "Lingyu, are you still a member of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen? No matter what Hongxian and Lianmeng did, they naturally had their reasons. However, this outer disciple actually dared to attack Lianmeng. This is his fault." When he spoke up to hear, the old man gazed at Pei Shanglong who'd rushed over and said, "Elder Pei, your disciple beat up our disciple, so this is a matter between disciples. I presume that Elder Pei won't interfere, right?" Pei Shanglong frowned slightly. He naturally understood the old man's meaning. This old man was telling him not to interfere in the battle between Mo Hongxian and Zhuan. It had to be said that Zhuowen's crushing of Jing Lianmeng had given him quite a pleasant surprise. However, he still didn't think that Zhuan was a match for Mo Hongxian. After all, Mo Hongxian was the #1 disciple of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen. His cultivation had even reached the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. What? Elder Pei, do you plan to interfere in the matters of the younger generation? The old man said coldly. Pei Shanglong's eyes flickered. He shook his head and said, Elder Wu, don't worry. Since it's a grudge between the younger generation, I naturally won't interfere. However, I hope to stop when it's appropriate. The old man smiled slightly but didn't give Pei Shanglong any reply. Stop when it's appropriate? That was a dream. If someone beat up a disciple of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen, they would at least cripple him. It would be best if they were beaten to death. Mo Hongxian's aura was like a rainbow. He looked at Zhuan arrogantly and said, Aunt, which hand did you use to beat junior sister Lianmeng? Chop it off for me now and maybe I'll spare your dog life. Then? We still don't know who's the aunt here. Zhuowen sneered. He didn't want to waste any more words with Mo Hongxian. He took a step forward and a terrifying yin and yang energy surged out like a tsunami. Zhuan was like an arrow that left the bow. He tore through the air and appeared in front of Mo Hongxian. You're courting death. Mo Hongxian sneered. He formed a palm with his right hand and slammed it toward Zhuowen's head. He exerted all of his strength. Waves of yin and yang energy poured out. Moreover, because he was a half-step transformation of the God domain, the embryonic form of the God domain surged around him, affecting Zhuowen's movements. Unfortunately, Zhuan was also at the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. His strength was much stronger than Mo Hongxian's. Not to mention Mo Hongxian, who was at the half-step transformation stage of the God domain, even the God domain of a true transformation stage of the God domain wouldn't be able to affect him. You're not affected at all? Mo Hongxian was shocked when he saw Zhuowen's unhurried steps and unhindered right fist. What shocked him even more was that the power that erupted from Zhuowen's punch was simply too powerful. It was so powerful to the point that it made him fearful. You should be the one who should die. Zhuowen's eyes were cold and merciless. His fist landed on Mo Hongxian's right palm. His fist was too terrifying. It crushed Mo Hongxian's right palm into powder. His fist continued forward, turning Mo Hongxian's right arm and right shoulder into a bloody pulp. Mo Hongxian screamed in horror and retreated in the air. He clutched his right arm and looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Unfortunately, his shock didn't last long. Zhuowen appeared above him like a ghost. His right hand formed a palm and slammed into Mo Hongxian's head. Pucci. Chapter 3963. Mo Hongxuan's corpse fell from midair, stirring up a cloud of dust. Everyone from Qing Luan Shengzhen fell into disbelief. Even Pei Shanglong and the others from Hangu Shengzhen were dumbfounded. No one expected Mo Hongxian, who had defeated all the inner disciples of Hangu Shengzhen, to be killed. In the end, he was actually killed by an unknown outer sect disciple of the Hong martial sacred sect in one move. This was simply too inconceivable, and it impacted everyone's nerves. The moment Zhuowen killed Mo Hongxian, he looked coldly at the stunned crowd. Ignoring their surprise, he turned into a rainbow and left the place. After Zhuowen left for a while, the people from Qing Luan Shengzhen came back to their senses. The old man was furious and said, How dare you kill a disciple of Qing Luan Shengzhen in front of me? You're courting death. With that, the old man was about to chase after Zhuowen, but he was stopped by Pei Shanglong. Elder Pei, what do you mean by this? The old man's face was gloomy as he looked at Pei Shanglong, who was blocking his way. Pei Shanglong's eyes flickered as he said in a low voice, Elder Wu, I think there must be some misunderstanding. Don't worry, I'll slowly find out the truth for you. The old man was flustered and exasperated. He said, What's there to find out? This kid killed the #1 inner disciple of Qing Luan Shengzhen in front of us. You should capture him immediately and hand him over to Qing Luan Shengzhen. Pei Shanglong's face was gloomy. He had given Elder Wu enough face, But unfortunately, Elder Wu did not give him any face. "Elder Wu, you and I saw it clearly just now. It was Mo Hongxian from Qingluan Shengzhen who attacked Hongwu Shengzhen's disciple first. Moreover, he used a killing move as soon as he attacked. That disciple was only defending himself. He accidentally killed Mo Hongxian. This is not the fault of Hongwu Shengzhen's disciple. On the contrary, Qingluan Shengzhen is unforgiving." Pei Shanglong's tone became very tough. He did not give Elder Wu any face. If Zhuo Wen was just an ordinary outer disciple, Mo Hongxian would have killed him and Pei Shanglong would not have cared. However, Zhuo Wen was obviously not. He was extremely strong. Even Mo Hongxian was easily killed by him. It could be seen that Zhuo Wen's strength was extraordinary. Pei Shanglong knew that with Zhuo Wen's participation in the upcoming Four Sacred Sects martial competition, their Hong martial sacred sect would be able to shock the world. No matter what, Pei Shanglong would not let Elder Wu have such a talent. Elder Wu's face changed slightly. He naturally understood why Pei Shanglong was so biased toward Jun. Although he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. After all, he was in Hongwu Shengzhen's territory. If he dared to make a scene here and angered Pei Shanglong, it was very likely that he would not be able to leave. "Elder Pei, I will remember today's matter in my heart. Goodbye." Elder Wu was very sullen. He snorted coldly and left with Qingluan Shengzhen's disciple. In Qingluan Shengzhen's team, Luo Lingyu, who was originally worried about Zhuo Wen, was relieved when she saw Pei Shanglong's biased words toward Zhuo Wen. At the same time, she was inexplicably shocked by Zhuo Wen's strength. She did not expect Zhuo Wen's strength to improve so quickly. It had not been long since they last met, and even Mo Hongxian was far from being Zhuo Wen's opponent. With junior brother Dao Wen's current strength, I'm afraid he already has the strength to kill Shi Shenhong. Luo Lingyu muttered to herself. She was extremely excited. She came to Liyuan main region alone and went through untold hardships to join Qingluan Shengzhen. Wasn't it all for the sake of success? Wasn't it to avenge her master and kill Shi Shenhong? Luo Lingyu gradually calmed down. Previously, she had made an agreement with Zhu. If Zhuo Wen really had the strength to kill Shi Shenhong, he would definitely bring her back to Wukong province and to Hongwu sect. After Pei Shanglong silently watched Qingluan Shengzhen's team leave, a middle-aged man beside him said worriedly, "Elder, it doesn't seem worth it to offend Elder Wu of Qingluan Shengzhen for a mere outer disciple." Pei Shanglong smiled and said, "That may not be the case. The fact that he could kill Mo Hongxian so easily shows that his strength is extraordinary." Coincidentally, the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition is just around the corner. Our Hongwu Shengzhen's outer and inner disciples are not as good as Qingluan Shengzhen. Do you think our Hongwu Shengzhen will lose if this person participates? Hearing this, the middle-aged man bowed in respect, thinking that Pei Shanglong was far-sighted. "Go back and check on this person's information, then pass it to me. When he returns to the sect, immediately promote him to an inner disciple and let him represent Hongwu Shengzhen to participate in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition." After Pei Shanglong had finished speaking, he went back to the sect. The rest of the people started to check on Zhuo Wen's information. Zhuo Wen naturally didn't know that Pei Shanglong had taken note of him and even planned to let him participate in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition. After he left the entrance of Hongwu Shengzhen, he immediately went to the cave outside the Great Word Incantation Forest. After he entered the cave, he realized that the Great Word Incantation Forest that he had destroyed had reappeared. He knew that it must have been rearranged by Shan Lingyun. He had destroyed the Great Word Incantation Forest before, so the Great Word Incantation Forest wasn't an obstacle to him. However, Yun didn't try to destroy the Great Word Incantation Forest. After he found the exit, he took the opportunity to leave the Great Word Incantation Forest and went to the valley behind the Great Word Incantation Forest. In the valley, there were beautiful mountains and clear waters. There were pavilions and terraces. In the courtyard in front of the pavilion in the middle of the valley, a little Lolita was lying comfortably on a wooden stick. Her hands were crossed over her head and she was sleeping soundly. Zhuo Wen shook his head and went to the courtyard. He realized that the courtyard was in a mess. There were dead leaves and debris everywhere. He didn't plan to wake Shan Lingyun up. Instead, he took the broom in the courtyard and silently swept the debris in the courtyard. He tidied up the items that were lying around in the courtyard. With Zhuowen's cultivation, he only needed to use his divine power to solve these problems. However, he also knew that if he used his divine power, he would definitely wake Shan Lingyun up. Therefore, he chose to do it himself. After he finished tidying up the courtyard, a few hours had passed. Zhuowen sat in the courtyard. As he waited for Shan Lingyun to wake up, he silently practiced the art of spiritual speech. During this period of time, his progress in the art of spiritual speech was extremely fast. He had already mastered it. Especially when it was combined with the third eye, the range that he could search had increased greatly. At this moment, the wooden staff that was floating in the air stealthily descended. The little lowly lying on top of it slowly opened her eyes, yawned loudly, and stretched her body. Chapter 3964. I've actually slept for 10 days and 10 nights. No wonder I feel a little hungry. I need to absorb some energy to replenish my energy. Shan Lingyun said in boredom. The tail of the wooden staff tapped Shan Lingyun's shoulder lightly, and the latter asked curiously, "Moo, what's wrong?" The tail of the wooden staff pointed in Zhuowen's direction, and Shan Lingyun looked over, and her big eyes instantly lit up. This brat is finally back. No wonder I felt that the courtyard was so tidy, so it was this brat who tidied it. Master really didn't dote on him for nothing, he's actually so obedient. Shan Lingyun smiled as she walked toward Zhuowen, and muttered to herself. Zhuowen seemed to have sensed something, and he slowly opened his eyes, and immediately saw a pair of big eyes looking at him. This pair of big eyes was very close to him, and after noticing that he had opened his eyes, the big eyes quickly retreated, revealing a young lowly face. "Master, you're finally awake," Zhuowen said with a smile. Shan Lingyun placed her hands behind her back and said in an old-fashioned manner, "Disciple, didn't you say that you went to the Falling Star Mountain? What did you get there?" Zhuowen smiled faintly and took out a star core from the great world and handed it to Shan Lingyun. "This is the star core? You got it from the Falling Star Mountain?" Shan Lingyun received the star core, and her big eyes revealed a look of shock. She immediately recognized the star core. "It's the star core. I think that after obtaining the star core, Master should be able to use the soul speech art to search the entire 100 territories for me to find Moyan Wushang," Zhuowen said. Shan Lingyun looked left and right, and clicked her tongue in wonder. "If I use the soul speech art to search the 100 territories, I'll need at least 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins. However, the star core is much better than 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, then the probability of me finding your friend will be higher." Zhuowen was excited, he could finally find Moyan Wushang. When Shan Lingyun saw that Zhuowen was in such a hurry, she curled her lips and was a little unhappy. However, she did not say anything. Instead, she said, "If I want to search the 100 outer regions, I have to use the great language spiritual art. This is a forbidden art. I need to prepare for 3 days. After 3 days, I will use this art." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. After all, he had already waited for so long. Waiting for another 3 days was a piece of cake. "How's your cultivation of the spirit speech technique going? Show it to your master." Shan Lingyun placed her hands behind her back and paced back and forth in front of Zhuowen. She looked like an elder. It was just that it was a little ridiculous for such a little lowly to pretend to be an elder. Zhuowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't refuse. Instead, he began to use the art of spiritual speech and opened the heaven's eye between his brows. An invisible ripple spread out from his heaven's eye, and the world changed color because of it. Shan Lingyun's big eyes were filled with astonishment. She muttered to herself, "How long has it been? This kid has already cultivated the art of spiritual speech to a small success? This is unbelievable. His comprehension is a little heaven-defying." Zhuowen closed his heaven's eye and opened it again. He looked at Shan Lingyun and said, "Master, how is it?" Shan Lingyun coughed and said, "The art of spiritual speech is unfathomable. Your talent is indeed not bad, but you can't be arrogant because of this. You have to work hard to learn. Do you understand?" Master is right. Zhuowen nodded seriously. When Shan Lingyun saw that Zhuowen was so serious and obedient, she felt a little embarrassed. Her cheeks were flushed red, and she looked very attractive. For the next 3 days, Yun stayed in the valley. Shan Lingyun taught Zhuowen by word of mouth and by example. She helped Zhuowen solve any problems that he encountered in the art of spiritual speech. After Shan Lingyun's guidance, Yun was suddenly enlightened. Some areas that he didn't understand at first were immediately understood. The more Shan Lingyun taught Zhuowen, the more surprised she was. Zhuowen's comprehension was too strong. She didn't need to explain too much. Zhuowen immediately understood what she meant. He could even infer many things from one example and point out some areas that she didn't think of. 3 days later, Shan Lingyun and Zhuowen came to the small pond under the waterfall in the depths of the valley. Shan Lingyun took out a praying mat and sat cross-legged on it. Her small hand was holding the heart of stars. Disciple, Master is going to perform the art of spiritual speech. This art must not be disturbed. You must protect me well. Shan Lingyun said seriously. Zhuowen quickly nodded, indicating that he would not let anything disturb Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun didn't say anything else. She closed her eyes and the heaven's eye between her eyebrows opened. The heart of stars in Shan Lingyun's hand floated up on its own. Waves of pure energy flowed into the heaven's eye between her eyebrows. At the same time, Shan Lingyun's hands formed an extremely complicated seal. Suddenly, a blazing white light shot out from Shan Lingyun's heaven's eye and shot up into the sky. After the white light shot up to the highest point of the sky, it condensed and changed continuously. Finally, it formed a huge eyeball that was thousands of feet in size. The eyeball was so big that it almost covered the sky. The black pupil in the sky kept turning as if it was looking for something. A terrifying aura surged out from the eyeball. The entire Hangwu Shengzhen was alarmed. Some of the weaker disciples couldn't withstand the aura and knelt down on the ground. The higher-ups of Hangwu Shengzhen raised their heads and looked at the huge eyeball in the sky. They were shocked. Someone even exclaimed, "This is Master Shan's art of spiritual speech. How can it be?" In the deepest part of the Hong martial sacred sect, there was a majestic palace. A vast aura suddenly burst out from within. In the deepest part of the palace, a burly white-haired youth suddenly opened his eyes. A terrifying aura surged out from his body. Lingyun? Why is she using the art of spiritual speech? This is a forbidden art. It will shorten one's lifespan. This is ridiculous. The white-haired youth suddenly rushed out of the palace and turned into a ray of light. He rushed into the valley of the art of spiritual speech outside of Hangwu Shengzhen. At the same time, the huge eyeball in the sky suddenly dispersed and turned into countless tiny eyeballs. These eyeballs scattered in all directions. Many of them even traveled through time and space and jumped to another space to search. Zhuowen was also shocked by Shan Lingyun's move. He didn't expect the art of spiritual speech to be so powerful. The aura of the huge eyeball almost made him want to worship it. Just as Zhuowen was shocked by the power of the art of spiritual speech, the white-haired youth had already landed in the valley. He ignored the obstruction of the art of spiritual speech and walked into the valley leisurely. It was only when the white-haired youth came to Zhuowen's side that Zhuowen felt something. He suddenly stepped back and stared at the white-haired youth. This was because he didn't even notice when the white-haired youth appeared. Chapter 3965. Who are you? Zhuowen looked at the white-haired young man in front of him in shock. At first glance, the white-haired young man did not have any aura, as if he was an ordinary person without any cultivation. However, Zhuowen was no fool. How could this person be an ordinary person if he could appear by his side without making a sound? The white-haired young man looked at Zhuowen coldly and said, "Who are you? Why did you appear in Lingyun's valley?" After he finished speaking, a vast and terrifying aura surged out from the white-haired young man's body. It was as if a storm had swept out, causing Zhuowen to retreat involuntarily. Zhuowen frowned and said, "Shan Lingyun is my master." The white-haired young man was stunned. He retracted his terrifying aura and said in disbelief, "Lingyun has taken in a disciple? Could it be that you have passed the great word incantation forest? Zhuan nodded and did not speak. The white-haired young man's background was unknown, and Zhuan was wary of him. Although the white-haired young man addressed Shan Lingyun intimately, who knew if he was a friend or foe? Thinking of this, Zhuan could not help but stand in front of Shan Lingyun and looked at the white-haired young man unkindly. When the white-haired young man saw this, he shook his head and said, "If I want to attack Lingyun, you will not be able to stop me." Seeing that Zhuan was getting more and more nervous, the white-haired young man wanted to laugh even more. He continued, "Don't worry. Lingyun is an old acquaintance of mine. I will not disturb her when she uses the great word incantation." After he finished speaking, the white-haired young man casually sat on a rock by the side of the pool and looked at ease. Although Zhuan was still cautious, he believed that the white-haired young man was not here to attack Shan Lingyun. After all, with the white-haired young man's strength, if he really wanted to attack, Zhuan would not be able to stop him. Unless Zhuan took out a supreme treasure like the Tai Emperor's seal, he might not be able to stop the white-haired young man. Of course, if the white-haired young man really wanted to attack, he would have done so long ago. Why bother talking so much nonsense with him? The white-haired young man sat down leisurely and began to size up Zhuan. He smiled and said, "Judging from your attire, you should be an outer disciple of Hangwu Shengzhen. However, your cultivation has already reached the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. With this kind of cultivation, you've long been qualified to be promoted to an inner court disciple." Zhuan's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice, "I've just broken through and haven't had the time to take the sex test, so I'm still an outer sect disciple." "Senior, you seem to be very familiar with Hangwu Shengzhen. May I know which senior you are?" Zhuan was very direct. If this person could rush to the great speech incantation forest immediately, he must have come from Hangwu Shengzhen. He must be one of Hangwu Shengzhen's men. The white-haired young man did not answer Zhuan's question directly. Instead, he asked in a serious tone, "The great speech incantation art is a spirit speech master's strongest forbidden art. The price to use this forbidden art is extremely high. Do you know why Lingyun suddenly wants to use this forbidden art?" Zhuan was stunned. He did not expect the white-haired young man to be so cautious. He pondered for a moment and said, "Isn't the price to use this forbidden art the energy of 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins? Is there another price to pay?" The white-haired young man sneered and said, "If that's the case, then this art can't be called a forbidden art. The energy consumption of this art can be said to be enormous, but this is just the foundation. The real price to use this art is the consumption of one's lifespan. Only then can it be successfully used. Moreover, it's at the cost of 90% of one's lifespan." Hearing this, Zhuan felt a rumble in his mind. He had never thought that the price to use the great speech incantation art would be so high. For cultivators who had cultivated to his level, the most important thing was not treasures or offensive treasures, but their own lifespan. Although cultivators who had reached his level had extremely long lifespan, it was not infinite. There was always an end. If one wanted to truly obtain more lifespan, then one had to reach a higher level and a stronger cultivation. And all of these required time. To cultivators, lifespan was a priceless treasure. Nothing could compare to it. Zhuan did not expect that Shan Lingyun would be willing to sacrifice 90% of her lifespan to use a forbidden art like the great speech incantation art for him to find Moyan Wusheng. This made Zhuan feel very guilty. If he had known that the great speech incantation art had such a painful price to pay, he would never have let Shan Lingyun use this art. With his comprehension, it would only take a few years for his great speech incantation art to reach great accomplishment. At that time, he would be able to use the great speech incantation art to find Moyan Wusheng. The white-haired youth silently observed Zhuan. Seeing that the latter's expression was uncertain, he said coldly, "I have known Lingyun for a long time. I know her very well. I know that she would not use such a forbidden art casually. Unless it was someone important to her, she would not sacrifice so much. Tell me the truth. Did she use the great speech incantation art for you?" The white-haired youth looked coldly at Zhuan and asked in an unfriendly tone. Zhuan was silent for a moment. In the end, he nodded and said, Master did not tell me that the great speech incantation art had such a price. If I had known, I would not have been able to get rid of Master's forbidden art. Bang! As soon as Zhuo Wengang finished speaking, a terrifying aura with blazing killing intent suddenly attacked him. Zhuan was caught off guard and was hit by the aura. With a groan, he could not help but fly backwards and smash into the rock wall behind him. His entire body was embedded in it. "It is indeed you, you bastard. Are you trying to kill Lingyun?" The white-haired youth exuded a terrifying killing intent. He stared coldly at Zhuan and his tone was filled with anger and killing intent. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood and struggled to get down from the rock wall. His face was pale as he stared coldly at the white-haired youth. The white-haired youth did not attack again. In his angry eyes, there was a tinge of sorrow. "Do you know that Lingyun does not have much lifespan left? She might die if she uses the great speech incantation art again." The white-haired youth's expression became more serious. His shoulders trembled slightly and tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Zhuan looked silently at the white-haired youth who was crying. The anger in his heart gradually dissipated and was replaced by confusion. What did the white-haired youth mean? Why did he say that Lingyun did not have much lifespan left? The two of them stood facing each other and fell into a long silence. Suddenly, Lingyun, who was sitting cross-legged on the shore of the pool, groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was even paler. In the sky, many small eyes gathered and surged into Shan Lingyun's glabella. Plop. Lingyun fell to the ground and coughed continuously. Chapter 3966. At this moment, Shan Lingyun slowly opened her eyes. Although she was very weak, she was still happy and said, "Disciple, I found her. I found the girl you were looking for." "Gui Jing, why are you here?" The white-haired youth looked at Shan Lingyun pitifully and sighed. "Lingyun, didn't you promise me that you would never use the great speech spirit art again? Why do you still use such a forbidden technique? Don't you know your own condition?" Shan Lingyun curled her lips and said weakly, "Gui Jing, you are so annoying. You are always a busybody. I have finally taken in a disciple. How can I reject my disciple's help? All right, let me go. I still have to tell my disciple the information of the person he is looking for." As she spoke, Shan Lingyun struggled to break free from the white-haired youth and walked towards Zhuan. The white-haired youth sighed in his heart and did not stop Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun walked to Zhuowen with difficulty and waved at him. She revealed a victorious smile and said, "Disciple, how is it? Your master is awesome, right? I found the person you are looking for." Zhuan slowly squatted down and looked at the lowly in front of him seriously. He saw that Shan Lingyun's face was extremely pale and her small body was still trembling. It was as if she would be blown away by the wind at any time. He knew that the white-haired youth was not lying. Shan Lingyun had indeed paid a heavy price to use the great speech spirit art. Otherwise, she would not be so weak. "But I have helped you find your little lover. Are you not happy?" Shan Lingyun looked at Zhuowen's serious face and could not help but put her hands on her waist and show her displeasure. But she was too weak. Just as she put her hands on her waist, she staggered and was about to fall to the ground. Zhuan stretched out his hand and held her. He said apologetically, "Master, I really did not know that you had to pay such a heavy price to use the great speech spirit art. If I had known, I would not have let you use this forbidden technique." Shan Lingyun was stunned. She then smiled and said, "I thought it was something serious. So it is just a small matter. Don't listen to Gui Jing. I am fine. This great speech spirit art is not as serious as he thinks." As she spoke, Shan Lingyun extended her small right hand and pressed her palm against Zhuowen's forehead. "Disciple, I just used the Great Language Soul spell to check and found the approximate location of Moyan of Wushang. Although it's not very accurate, at least I've locked onto an area. I'll pass this information to you now." Just as Shan Lingyun finished speaking, Zhuan sensed a stream of information flowing from Shan Lingyun's palm into the space between his eyebrows, appearing in his memories. This information showed Moyan of Wushang's approximate location. However, Yuan wasn't happy at all because this information was obtained through Shan Lingyun sacrificing her lifespan. This made Zhuowen's heart heavy. "Disciple, why are you not happy at all? I went through a lot of trouble to get it back for you." Shan Lingyun pouted when she saw Zhuowen's serious expression. Zhuowen forced a smile, but he didn't know what to say. "I'm so tired." "Disciple, take a good look at the information. Master can only help you up to this point." "I'm so tired." Shan Lingyun yawned loudly, then fell asleep in Zhuowen's arms. Zhuowen carried Shan Lingyun and walked into the pavilion. He gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. After that, Yuan turned to look at the white-haired youth who appeared at the door and said, "Senior, can you tell me more about Master?" The white-haired youth's gaze was complicated. He thought for a while, then nodded and said, "Come out with me. Since you're her only disciple, you should know some of her past." The two of them left the pavilion and sat on the rattan chairs in the courtyard. The white-haired youth was silent for a long time, then slowly began to tell Shen Ying about Shan Lingyun's past. From the white-haired youth's narration, Zhuan finally knew that the white-haired youth in front of him was the sect leader of Hangu Shengzhen, Gui Jing. It was no wonder that when Shan Lingyun mentioned this name, Yuan felt that it was so familiar. As for Shan Lingyun's identity, it shocked Zhuan. It turned out that Shan Lingyun was the illegitimate daughter of Huxley's clan leader, Lu Renjue. Shan Lingyun's master, Lu Xian, was once Huxley's strongest spiritual speaker. Her status was extremely high, and she was respected by tens of thousands of people. Originally, Shan Lingyun's birth was a family scandal of Huxley's clan leader. In order to erase the scandal, Huxley's clan leader, Lu Renjue, threw Shan Lingyun to Shan Lingyun's master, Lu Xian, to clean up. Originally, Shan Lingyun was Lu Renjue's daughter, so naturally, her surname was Lu. However, Shan Lingyun didn't. Even her father had abandoned her, so she didn't recognize Lu Renjue's surname. Thus, she followed her mother's surname and was named Shan Lingyun. This was to deny the fact that she was Lu Renjue's daughter. Back then, Lu Xian didn't kill Shan Lingyun. Instead, she secretly raised her and took her in as her disciple. Lu Xian had two disciples. One of them was Shan Lingyun, and the other was Lu Huanyu. Lu Huanyu was once Huxley's #1 genius, and he was extremely talented in the spiritual speaker technique. After he found out about Shan Lingyun's background, he was very sympathetic towards Shan Lingyun. Thus, together with Lu Xian, he hid it for Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun grew up day by day. It was unknown if it was because of her special body constitution, but when she reached the age of 8, her body stopped growing. She always looked like a little girl. Although Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu tried their best to hide Shan Lingyun's background, it was still discovered in the end. The entire Huxley was alarmed. In order to protect Shan Lingyun, Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu betrayed Huxley and brought Shan Lingyun to hide from Huxley's pursuit. However, Huxley was too strong. Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu were exhausted from chasing after him. In the end, in order to protect Shan Lingyun, Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu became bait and lured away Huxley's pursuers. Shan Lingyun indeed escaped from Huxley's pursuers, but Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu's whereabouts were unknown. No one knew if they were alive or dead. Gui Jing was Lu Huanyu's best friend. She had a close relationship with Lu Huanyu. Back then, after Lu Huanyu handed Shan Lingyun to Gui Jing, he left without hesitation and never returned. Speaking of the past, Gui Jing was full of emotions. Her eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. Later on, in order to find Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu, Shan Lingyun used the spiritual speaker technique many times, but it was to no avail. As she used the spiritual speaker technique too many times, she did not have much lifespan left. She promised me that she would not use this technique again. However, I did not expect that she would use it again for you, her new disciple. She is really, speaking of this, Gui Jing let out a long sigh. Her face was full of helplessness. On the other hand, Yuan was silent for a long time. He did not expect Shan Lingyun to have such a tragic past. He also did not know that Shan Lingyun had used the spiritual speaker technique many times and her lifespan had been severely depleted. Chapter 3967. Gui Jing looked at Zhuowen silently. His eyes were filled with sorrow. He shook his head and said, "You don't need to know about this. I don't think Ling Yun wants you to know either." Zhuowen said with determination, "How much lifespan does my master have?" Seeing the determination in Zhuowen's eyes, Gui Jing was moved. He thought for a moment and said, "Before she used the great speech spiritual spell on you, she should have a few thousand years left." Zhuowen trembled. According to Gui Jing, using the great speech spiritual spell would consume 90% of one's lifespan. This meant that Shan Lingyun only had a few hundred years left. A few hundred years was just a snap of the fingers for cultivators with long lifespans. Shan Lingyun only had so little lifespan left. Zhuowen felt ashamed and sorrowful. "Senior, is there any way to save my master's lifespan?" Zhuowen suddenly asked. Gui Jing had a complicated look. He thought for a while and said, "I remember that Huxley has a supreme divine medicine that can increase a cultivator's lifespan by at least 100,000 years. If Ling Yun can obtain an additional 100,000 years of lifespan, then with her talent, her cultivation level will increase steadily within 100,000 years. Her lifespan will also increase slowly as she breaks through her cultivation level." Gui Jing looked at Zhuowen and shook his head. "You don't have to think about this divine medicine. You have no chance of obtaining it. After all, this is one of Huxley's most precious divine medicines. Many people in the clan don't even have the chance to use it, let alone an outsider like you." Hearing this, Zhuowen was delighted. He didn't expect Huxley to have such a heaven-defying divine medicine. It seemed like he had to go to Huxley in the future and find a chance to obtain this divine medicine. Of course, with his foundation he couldn't snatch it. However, he could use other things to exchange for it or use other methods. After all, Shan Lingyun still had a few hundred years. In these few hundred years, Zhuowen's cultivation might improve further. By then, even Huxley might not be his match. Looking at the expression on Zhuowen's face, Gui Jing could also guess what Zhuowen was thinking. She couldn't help but shake her head. She secretly thought that Zhuowen was too naive. Could it be that he really had designs on the boundless longevity divine medicine? For the next period of time, Zhuowen stayed in the valley. As Shan Lingyun was in a coma, Nguyen had to stay behind to take care of her. On the third day, the white-haired young man left the valley because of what happened in Shenzhen. After interacting with Gui Jing for so many days, Zhuowen finally found out about her identity. Gui Jing was actually the sect leader of Hanggu Shenzhen. She had a high position and was considered one of the top experts even in the Liyuan main region. However, Nguyen wasn't too surprised. The fact that Gui Jing could appear by his side without anyone noticing had already proved that she was stronger than Pei Shanglong. Pei Shanglong was one of the 10 elders of Hanggu Shenzhen. Her position was extremely high and was only below the sect leader. If someone was stronger than Pei Shanglong and belonged to Hanggu Shenzhen, it could only be the sect leader of Hanggu Shenzhen. While taking care of Shan Lingyun, Nguyen had been studying the information that Shan Lingyun had sent to him. The information that Shan Lingyun gave him was a map. He only knew that the map was a mountain called the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires Mountain. As for which region of the 100 domains this mountain was in, Zhuowen didn't know. However, he knew that since he knew the exact location, it wouldn't be that difficult to find out the exact location of the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires Mountain. At least, it was much better than searching for a needle in a haystack by Zhuowen. After a month, Shan Lingyun finally woke up. Shan Lingyun opened her eyes and immediately saw Zhuowen, who was sitting by the bed and cultivating. Her eyes were filled with gentleness and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Zhuowen seemed to have felt something and slowly opened his eyes. When he realized that Shan Lingyun had woken up, he was very happy. "Disciple, how long have I been unconscious?" Shan Lingyun slowly propped herself up and looked at Zhuowen as she asked. Zhuowen helped Shan Lingyun up and leaned her petite body against the side of the bed. He said, "A month. I've been unconscious for so long? I still underestimated the power of the big word spirit art. Luckily, I'm fine now." Shan Lingyun stretched and looked at Zhuowen mischievously. She said, "Disciple, are you very happy now? I've helped you find the location of your little lover." Zhuowen smiled bitterly. He looked deeply at Shan Lingyun and felt bitter in his heart. Even until now, Shan Lingyun hadn't told him the huge price to pay for the big word spirit art. Zhuan knew that Shan Lingyun didn't want him to worry and deliberately didn't mention this matter. Thank you, master. If not for you, I don't know how to find Wushang. However, I only know the exact location now. As for which region it is in, I still don't know. Zhuan said. Shan Lingyun said, I remember that in Hangu Shengzhen's Hall of Records, there's a complete map of the 100 outer regions. However, this map is extremely precious and is in the depths of the Hall of Records. Ordinary disciples don't have the right to come in contact with it. Zhuan looked at Shan Lingyun and wasn't disappointed. Instead, he smiled and said, since Master deliberately mentioned this Hall of Records, I think Master should have a way to let me look at this map. Shan Lingyun rolled her eyes at Zhuan and said, I wanted to give you a suspense, but you actually exposed me directly. As a master, I don't have any dignity at all. Zhuan was a little amused and pretended not to know. I'm only an outer sect disciple. I don't have the right to enter the depths of the Hall of Records. What should I do? Master, help me. Shan Lingyun rolled her eyes at Zhuan again and snorted. Hypocrite. Although Shan Lingyun said this, she still revealed a proud smile and said, Master is very resourceful. It's naturally no problem for me to help you enter the depths of the Hall of Records. As she spoke, Shan Lingyun took out a token and passed it to Zhuan. Zhuan took the token and realized that the token was overflowing with light. Its surface was pale gold, and the word, Shan, was engraved on the front of the token. This token is my identity token. With this token, you can enter and exit all the forbidden areas in Hangu Shengzhen as you wish. No one will dare to stop you, Shan Lingyun said proudly. Zhuan looked at the token in his hand and was extremely excited. According to what Shan Lingyun said, if he held this token and entered the dungeon where Hong Shenwu was imprisoned, wouldn't he be able to enter without any obstructions? There was no doubt that this token was of great significance to him. Chapter 3968. Zhuan stayed in the valley for a few more days until he was sure that Shan Lingyun was fine. Only then did he leave the valley. When he returned to Hangu Shengzhen, Ziling and Li Xinbing came to him excitedly. Elder Pei has been looking for me? He wants to promote me to an inner disciple? Zhuan looked at the two girls in surprise. Ziling and Li Xinbing brought him news that Pei Shanglong was looking for him again and wanted to promote him to an inner disciple. He wanted him to participate in the upcoming 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition. Brother Daowen, you probably don't know yet. You're now a big celebrity in the sect. Everyone knows who you are. Ziling said excitedly. Zhuan looked surprised and said, Why do you say that? More than a month ago, you killed the number 1 inner disciple of Qingluan Shengzhen, Mo Hongxian, in one move. This matter is widely known in the sect. Mo Hongxian defeated all the inner disciples of Hangu Shengzhen in our sect. He was invincible and made all the disciples in the sect unhappy. Qingluan Shengzhen was also extremely arrogant and thought that Hangu Shengzhen was invincible. But you killed Mo Hongxian in one move. It can be said that you helped many disciples vent their anger. Now you're famous in the sect, Li Xinbing said with a smile. Zhuan suddenly understood. So it was because of this matter. No wonder Pei Shanglong looked for him and wanted him to participate in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition. He wanted him to win glory for Hangu Shengzhen in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition. Unfortunately, Yuan was not interested in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition and being an inner disciple. The reason why he wanted to join Hangu Shengzhen was not to become a high-ranking member of Hangu Shengzhen, but to save Hong Shenwu. Once he saved Hong Shenwu, he would immediately leave the Hong martial sacred sect. He would not have any lingering feelings. Junior sisters, did Pei Shanglong ask you two to come and persuade me? Zhuan asked. Li Xinbing and Ziling looked at each other. They didn't see any excitement in Zhuan's eyes. Could it be that Zhuan wasn't happy at all about being promoted to an inner disciple? We are only outer sect disciples, how could we possibly come into contact with Elder Pei? Elder Pei was the one who spread the word. We've heard the news and are here to inform you. I think Elder Pei will know about your return very soon. Ziling said. Zhuan shook his head. I'm not the least bit interested in the inner disciples and the 4 Shenzhen martial competition. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Elder Pei. After saying that, Zhuan greeted the 2 girls and went straight to the Ancient Records Hall. Since he had obtained Shan Lingyun's identity token, the Ancient Records Hall no longer had any restrictions on him. He couldn't wait to go to the Ancient Records Hall to check out the map of the 100 territories. When he arrived at the entrance of the Ancient Records Hall, 2 young cultivators suddenly blocked his way. What's the matter? Zhuowen looked at their attire and discovered that they were both inner sect disciples. Junior brother, is your name Daowen? A tall, thin young man looked at Zhuowen with bright eyes. Zhuowen smiled and said, Did Elder Pei send you guys here? It seems that you are junior brother Daowen. More than a month ago, junior brother Daowen's magnificent feat at the entrance of the sect has spread throughout the outer and inner sect. The tall, thin young man said with admiration. The other young man, who was shorter, said, Elder Pei is fond of talents. He thinks that with junior brother's talent and strength, it is a waste of your talent to stay in the outer sect. Therefore, he specially sent us here to let junior brother join the inner sect. He has already prepared the inner sect identity token and clothes for you. Zhuowen shook his head and said, Senior brothers, have you finished talking? If so, please let me pass. I still have to go into the Ancient Records Hall to read some information. The 2 young men's faces stiffened. They didn't expect Zhuowen to be so calm. Wasn't it a good thing to become an inner sect disciple and be valued by Elder Pei? Junior brother Daowen, you may not know Elder Pei's identity. He is one of the 10 elders of the Hangwu Shenzhen Hall. His position is only below the sect leader. He is a real big shot in our sect. The tall, thin young man emphasized. Zhuowen couldn't help but shake his head. He ignored the 2 young men and stepped into the Ancient Records Hall directly. As he had Shan Lingyun's identity token, he entered the Ancient Records Hall very smoothly. Moreover, the disciples guarding the door looked at him with great surprise. After all, Shan Lingyun's identity token was extremely precious. If he wasn't close to Shan Lingyun, he wouldn't have such an identity token. The 2 young men were stunned when they saw Zhuowen's back as he entered the main hall. They really didn't expect that there would be such a stubborn guy in this world. They had already emphasized Pei Shanglong's strength and extraordinariness, but this guy wasn't moved at all. Let's go back and report to the elder, the shorter young man said. The tall, thin young man sighed. He knew that the 2 of them had failed to contact Zhuowen this time. The Ancient Records Hall was extremely large and could be described as spacious. There were huge bookshelves that were dozens of feet high. Every bookshelf was filled with ancient records, including divine powers, secret skills, alchemy books, array books, and various other ancient records. Moreover, as one went deeper into the Ancient Records Hall, the levels of the various ancient records were also higher. It could be said that the collection of ancient records was quite abundant and immeasurable. Zhuowen's eyes were bright. His alchemy skills and array Dao hadn't improved for a long time. They were basically still at heaven-breaking level 4. In the Ancient Records Hall, Zhuowen saw many alchemy books and array books that were above heaven-breaking level 4. He even saw heaven-breaking level 8 array books and alchemy books. Alchemy books and array books of this level were extremely precious in the outside world. Many cultivators would fight over them. However, they existed in Hangwu Shenzhen. It could be seen how deep Hangwu Shenzhen's foundation was. After secretly memorizing the alchemy books and array books that he fancied, Zhuowen entered the deepest part of the Ancient Records Hall. He planned to take a look at the ancient record that recorded the map of the 100 territories outside the world. In the end, Zhuowen found the ancient record of the map at the top of the largest bookshelf in the deepest part of the Ancient Records Hall. This ancient record was very thick. The entire book occupied a row of the bookshelf. Zhuowen gently took down the ancient record and slowly opened the first page. Suddenly, the first page surged with rich divine light. In this divine light, there was a lot of complicated information. This information was constantly outlined and intertwined, finally forming a map. Chapter 3969. It had to be said that the territory of the 100 Outer Realms was indeed vast and boundless. Zhuo Wen's reading speed could be considered extremely fast, but he had only flipped through 1/5 of it after 3 whole days. There was still 4/5 of the map that he hadn't seen. However, Zhuo Wen was very patient. He carefully examined the contents of the map. While Zhuo Wen was seriously reading the map in the Ancient Records Hall, Pei Shanglong couldn't wait any longer. Seeing that the 4th Shenzhen martial competition was about to begin, Pei Shanglong finally came to find Zhuo Wen in person. After Pei Shanglong entered the Hall of Records, he caused a stir. Many of the disciples who were looking through the records in the Hall of Records looked at Pei Shanglong with reverence. They were puzzled in their hearts as to why an elder of the 10 halls like Pei Shanglong would need to enter the Hall of Records to look through the records personally. However, when everyone in the hall saw Pei Shanglong walk straight to Zhuo Wen in the depths of the hall, there was an uproar. Although they didn't know Zhuo Wen, he had attracted the attention of most cultivators in the past 3 days. This was because when this guy entered the Ancient Records Hall, he didn't look at divine abilities or secret techniques. Instead, he focused on reading the map of the 100 Outer Realms. This behavior was extremely strange in the eyes of most disciples. This was why Zhuo Wen was noticed by them. Now, when they saw Pei Shanglong take the initiative to walk towards Zhuo Wen, they were all guessing whether Zhuo Wen had offended Pei Shanglong or not. There were even some who were gloating in their hearts, secretly thinking that Zhuo Wen was going to be unlucky. However, when everyone saw Pei Shanglong walk to Zhuo Wen's side, he didn't reveal a stern expression as they expected. Instead, he silently stood beside Zhuo Wen and didn't disturb him. It was as if he was waiting for Zhuo Wen to finish reading the map. Everyone was stunned. Everyone could see that Pei Shanglong did not seem to be looking for trouble with Yun. Instead, he was waiting for the latter to finish watching. This made many disciples wonder just what kind of identity Zhuo Wen had to make Pei Shanglong, an elder of the 10 halls, be willing to wait for him and not dare to disturb him. Zhuo Wen seemed to have sensed something. He slowly turned his head and looked at Pei Shanglong, who was standing beside him. Pei Shanglong stared at Zhuo Wen and revealed a faint smile as he said, "You're called Dao Wen, right? Do you mind if I sit beside you?" Although Pei Shanglong was asking for Zhuo Wen's opinion, he did not wait for Zhuo Wen's reply and sat down. "May I know why Elder Pei is looking for me?" Zhuo Wen silently looked at the old man in front of him. Of course, he knew why the old man was looking for him. Elder Pei did not mind Zhuo Wen asking the obvious. Instead, he said with a smile, "Dao Wen, your strength is very strong, and your talent is also very good. I want to take you in as my last disciple." Finished talking, Elder Pei looked at Zhuo Wen with a smile. He was an elder of the 10 halls. His status was honorable, and his status was lofty. God knows how many people wanted to break their heads to become his last disciple but failed. In Pei Shanglong's view, he personally invited Zhuo Wen to become his last disciple. The latter would definitely be overwhelmed by the favor and accept it. But what surprised him was that Wen just glanced at him indifferently and said, "Elder Pei, I appreciate your good intentions. I feel that my current position is very good. I don't want to torment myself." Pei Shanglong's brows furrowed slightly. He also did not expect that Zhuo Wen would actually refuse his invitation. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Many disciples begged for it but could not get it. "Dao Wen, are you sure you don't want to consider it more?" Pei Shanglong asked somewhat unwillingly. Zhuo Wen shook his head and did not answer anymore. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at the map of the 100 outer regions in his hand. Pei Shanglong's eyes revealed a trace of annoyance. This Zhuo Wen was also seriously a little too rude, right? Was this ignoring him? However, this place was the records hall after all. He naturally did not dare to act rashly without careful consideration. Pei Shanglong endured his rage and said in a solemn voice, "Dao Wen, the 4th Shenzhen martial competition is also about to start. When the time comes, you replace the outer court disciples and participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial competition this time." Pei Shanglong's tone this time could not be said to be good. It was even somewhat unkind, completely a commanding tone. "Not interested." Zhuo Wen did not even raise his head as he opened his mouth and said indifferently. Pei Shanglong was really seething with anger. This bastard, rejecting his good intentions time and time again. Did he really think that his temper was so good? Humph. Dao Wen, you're really something. You take care of yourself. Pei Shanglong snorted coldly, got up, and left the records hall. Many of the onlooking disciples in the hall revealed expressions of disbelief. Although they were unable to clearly hear the conversation between Zhuowen and Pei Shanglong, from the conversation between Pei Shanglong and Zhuowen, Zhuowen did not even raise his head, and in the end, Pei Shanglong even left the records hall with an ugly expression. They could completely guess the specific conversation between the two. Without a doubt, Zhuowen, this fellow who wore outer court disciples' clothes, was actually arrogant to such an extent. An existence of Pei Shanglong's level personally came to find him, but this fellow actually ignored him. This fellow wanted to ascend to the heavens. Many people secretly shook their heads in their hearts. They felt that Zhuowen simply did not know what was good for him. He actually offended Pei Shanglong. Wasn't this courting death? Zhuowen naturally would not care about the thoughts of these bystanders. He still silently looked at the map in his hand. Under Zhuowen's tireless search, finally, on the 10th day, he found the map of the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires Mountain. What surprised Zhuowen was that the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires Mountain was actually in the Nuwa realm. Moreover, it was an extremely mysterious forbidden area in the Nuwa realm. It's actually in the Nuwa realm. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He was not unfamiliar with the Nuwa realm because the Nuwa clan was the ruler of the Nuwa realm. When Moyan Wushang was in the lower realm, becoming a desireless person was actually indirectly related to the Nuwa clan. Later, the experts of the Nuwa clan even wanted to take Moyan Wushang away. Zhuowen did not expect that the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires Mountain was actually in the Nuwa realm. Zhuowen was a little worried that if Moyan Wushang's whereabouts were exposed, he was afraid that he would be discovered by the Nuwa clan and be taken away. However, Zhuowen also thought that the Saint Lord of 7 Emotions and 6 Desires that Moyan Wushang had obtained was extremely extraordinary. The place of inheritance should not be so simple. The chances of Moyan Wushang being taken away by the Nuwa clan was not very high. After the matters here are settled, I will go to the Nuwa realm. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. In the Hushu realm, he still had many things to deal with. In addition, his strength was not enough. Therefore, Zhuowen planned to completely settle the matters here before going to the Nuwa realm. Chapter 3970. In the following period of time, Zhuowen was immersed in reading all sorts of books in the book hall. Especially those books on alchemy and formations that he valued, he'd practically read through all of them. His perception was stronger than before, so no matter how complicated the books in the Hall of Records were, he could comprehend them in a short period of time. In addition, he also looked at all kinds of divine abilities and integrated them into the 3 grand mist divine abilities that he created, causing the power of his 3 divine abilities to skyrocket. While Zhuowen was immersed in the Hall of Records, the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition was about to begin. The Hangwu Shenzhen was bustling with noise and excitement. It was said that among the 10 elders of the Shenzhen Hall, there were a total of 8 elders. They brought along all the core disciples, as well as the elites of the inner and outer disciples. It could be said that the Hangwu Shenzhen Hall's team lineup was extremely luxurious. Pei Shanglong was one of the team leaders. He stood in front of the team and talked to Elder Gu Yunfei absent-mindedly. Gu Yunfei saw that Pei Shanglong was absent-minded and asked curiously, "Elder Pei, what's wrong with you? Why are you so absent-minded? Is there something on your mind?" Pei Shanglong came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. "I was just thinking about a little guy." "Who is it?" Gu Yunfei's interest was immediately piqued. A little guy that Pei Shanglong was so concerned about had piqued his interest. Pei Shanglong thought about it and told Gu Yunfei about Jun. "So it's that Dao Wen. This little guy has been very popular in the sect recently. He is indeed extraordinary for an outer disciple to be able to kill Mo Hongxian." Gu Yunfei sneered and continued, "It's just that this little guy is too arrogant. Brother Pei, you personally invited him and he actually dared to reject you. Where did his arrogance and confidence come from?" Pei Shanglong smiled bitterly. Since Yuan had rejected him, he couldn't force him to participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. Moreover, This little guy had rejected his offer to be his last disciple. This was a huge blow to Pei Shanglong. "Brother Pei, tell me, where is this little guy now? I'll go find him. I want to see if he won't even give me face." Gu Yunfei snorted coldly. Pei Shanglong frowned slightly. He wanted to reject Gu Yunfei, but Gu Yunfei insisted on going. He had no choice but to agree to bring him to the Hall of Records to find Chun. After all, there were still a few hours of Shenzhen martial arts competition. The two of them easily found a person in the depths of the Hall of Records who was tirelessly flipping through an esoteric formation book. Gu Yunfei walked directly toward Zhuan. His footsteps were very loud. He arrived beside Zhuan and looked down at him. Seeing that Zhuan was flipping through the formation book, he sneered and said, "You're an outer court disciple. Why are you reading a mess of formation books instead of cultivating?" Zhuan didn't even raise his head and said, "What does what I'm reading have to do with you?" Gu Yunfei was startled. It was the first time he was contradicted by a disciple like this. His expression instantly became ugly. "What did you just say? Do you dare to say it again?" Gu Yunfei said in an unfriendly tone. "Get lost. Don't disturb me from reading." Zhuan still didn't turn his head and shouted coldly. Gu Yunfei was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. This bastard actually dared to tell him to scram. He was an elder of the 10 halls and had a noble status. Even the other elders of the 10 halls had to be polite to him. Who had ever told him to scram? A terrifying killing intent surged out of Gu Yunfei's body. It was like a vast and terrifying aura that rolled out and pressured Zhuan. Zhuan slowly raised his head and looked coldly at Gu Yunfei. He said, "I told you to get lost. Didn't you hear me? Don't tell me you want to fight in the Hall of Records." The anger in Gu Yunfei's eyes was like an erupting volcano. He was almost unable to restrain his anger. He said coldly, "Bastard, don't you know who I am? Elder Gu Yunfei of the Divine Goose Hall." "How could I not know?" Zhuan sneered. How could he not know this Gu Yunfei? This was the guy who had come to the Wukong State region to capture Hongshanwu. "Since you know that I'm an elder of the 10th Hall, how dare you speak to me in such a tone?" Gu Yunfei frowned and said strangely, "So what if you're an elder of the 10th Hall? You can casually use your aura to pressure a nameless outer court disciple like me? If so, then you're really a promising elder. You've made the other elders of the 10th Hall proud." Zhuan said coldly. Gu Yunfei was furious. This Yuan really didn't know how to talk at all. What kind of nonsense was he talking about? Fortunately, Pei Shanglong saw that the atmosphere between the two was not good. He quickly said, "Daowen, we're here to sincerely invite you to participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. If you can participate, you'll definitely amaze the world with a single brilliant feat and your name will shake the 4 sections. This is a good opportunity." Zhuan looked at Pei Shanglong. His expression eased a little. He shook his head and said, "Elder Pei, I appreciate your kindness. I don't want to participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. I just want to quietly browse through the books here. Please leave." Hearing this, Pei Shanglong was depressed. He had already invited Zhuan twice, but this guy was stubborn and didn't want to participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. He knew that his persuasion was useless. He sighed and pulled the flustered and exasperated Gu Yunfei out of the Hall of Records. Zhuan silently looked at Gu Yunfei's back. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. If he had the chance, he would definitely make Gu Yunfei pay the price. After walking out of the hall, Gu Yunfei calmed down and said with a frown, "Brother Pei, don't you feel that this guy's attitude towards me is a little tit for tat? I've never seen this guy before." Pei Shanglong nodded. He also felt that Zhuan's attitude towards Gu Yunfei was a little too bad. However, his attitude towards him was obviously much better. He didn't know why it was like this. Gu Yunfei was even more baffled. However, he didn't think too much about it. He only thought that there was something wrong with this Zhuan. Several hours later, Yuan put down the formation book in his hand. He stretched lazily, and a sharp light burst out of his eyes. After this period of reading, he had practically read all the formation books and alchemy books in the Hall of Records once. He had also flipped through a large number of mystical powers. Zhuowen's alchemy and formation Dao had improved tremendously. He was confident that he could improve his formation Dao and alchemy Dao to the level of the heaven-crushing 8 transformation in a short period of time. However, these all required practice. For example, if he wanted to improve his alchemy Dao, he would have to refine a divine pill of the corresponding level. For formation Dao, he would have to set up formations of the corresponding level. The teams of the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition are probably about to leave. Zhuan murmured to himself. He stood up and left the Hall of Records. Chapter 3971. In the next half a month, Zhuowen basically cycled through the 2 steps of collecting materials for setting up the array and setting up the array. His array skills had already reached the 4th level of the heaven-breaking realm. In this half a month, he was constantly trying to set up high-level arrays. One after another, they set up 3 kinds of high-level formations of heaven-breaking Tier 5, Tier 6, and Tier 7. The reason why he improved so quickly, other than his terrifying perception, was because he had read many array books in the Hall of Records. Or else, his array skills wouldn't have improved so quickly. Zhuowen originally wanted to try to set up a heaven-breaking Step 8 grade array, but a heaven-breaking Step 8 grade array was really too complicated. Even with Zhuowen's amazing perception, it wasn't that easy to successfully set it up in a short time. Zhuowen had already been delayed for half a month. He didn't want to waste any more time. He wanted to go save Hong Shenwu immediately. Although the martial arts competition of the 4 sacred sects would be held for 20 days and only half a month had passed, if there were any unforeseen circumstances and the Hong martial sacred sects team returned early, wouldn't Zhuowen's hard-earned opportunity be ruined? Hong Shenwu was locked up in the Hall of Execution. The Hall of Execution was one of the 10 halls. The elder of the Hall of Execution was Sha Wuji. Because Sha Wuji was in charge of the law enforcement of the house, his position was extremely important. Therefore, he didn't follow the team to the 4th Shenzhen competition. Sha Wuji was one of the only 2 elders who guarded Hong Wu's Shenzhen. Zhuan summoned his Yin spirit. A pitch-black shadow appeared before Zhuan. Under the control of Zhuowen's mind, the Yin spirit silently transformed into a black shadow and left the outer sect's mountain peak. Sha Wuji was after all one of the 10 elders. He was a real powerhouse in the demonic transformation realm. His capabilities were extremely terrifying. Even though Zhuowen had enough trump cards, he was still wary of him and didn't want to fight him head-on. Therefore, he decided to let the Yin spirit explore the path first. The Hall of Punishment was heavily guarded. Outside the hall, there were 3 layers of guards patrolling. All of them wore heavy armor and emitted powerful auras. They were like wild beasts, powerful and unparalleled. The Yin deity was like a black shadow, silently passing through the 3 layers of guards and smoothly entering the Hall of Punishment. The evil Punisher Hall was extremely spacious, but there was not a single person in sight. It was terrifyingly quiet. Zhuan did not see any maidservants or servants in the Fiend Punishment Hall. In fact, he did not even see Sha Wuji. The Yin deity entered the dungeon in the depths of the Hall of Punishment. Back then, when Zhuan controlled the Yin god, he had turned the entire Hall of Punishment upside down. He was already familiar with the structure and terrain of the Hall of Punishment. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to enter the dungeon hidden in the Hall of Punishment. The moment Yinshin entered the dungeon, he could not help but shiver. He could actually feel the extremely dense baleful qi coming from the dungeon. This baleful qi was too terrifying. It was as if it was real. Inside the dungeon, it formed a storm of baleful qi. It was extremely terrifying. Zhuan was unsure. He remembered that the last time he entered the dungeon, he did not feel any baleful qi. Why was there such a terrifying baleful qi in the dungeon this time? Although he was puzzled, Zhuan still controlled the Yin deity to enter the dungeon. Very quickly, he arrived at the dungeon where Hong Shenwu was locked up. When he saw that Hong Shenwu was still locked up inside, he sighed in relief. At the same time, he realized that the deeper he went into the dungeon, the thicker the baleful qi became. It was as if this baleful qi was coming from the deepest part of the dungeon. Yun hesitated for a moment. He did not immediately rescue Hong Shenwu. Although his Yin deity was powerful enough to undo the bindings on Hong Shenwu, he was not powerful enough. Even if he did undo the bindings on Hong Shenwu, he would not be able to take Hong Shenwu away. He planned to find the source of this baleful qi before making any plans. The Yin deity did not make a sound. His speed was not fast as he slowly moved towards the depths of the dungeon. Very quickly, he arrived at the deepest part of the dungeon. He saw that the deepest part of the dungeon was a rather spacious open space. From the broken solid railings in front of the open space, it could be seen that this open space should have been an extremely large dungeon. At this moment, in the middle of the open space, there was a stalwart man wearing blood-red armor. This man had a square face with thick eyebrows. His face was covered with sinister scars, announcing that this person had once been an extraordinary person. The man sat upright in the open space, his chest rising and falling. His entire body was enveloped in a thick blood qi. A terrifying baleful qi spread out with every breath he took. It was like a flood rolling out. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He knew that the source of the baleful qi in the dungeon was this middle-aged man in front of him. From the way the middle-aged man sat, it could be seen that this person should be cultivating some extremely evil and terrifying divine ability. Sha Wuji, Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. This person's qi was too vast. It was not inferior to Gu Yunfei or Pei Shangong. He should also be a demonic transformation expert. Since he was sitting in the depths of the dungeon, it could only be the elder of the Hall of Punishment, Sha Wuji. All of a sudden, Sha Wuji opened his eyes, which shone with a dense blood-red light. He looked puzzled. He turned his head to look at the Yin deity. It was as if he was looking at something, but also as if he was puzzled that there was nothing there. Zhuowen's heart skipped a beat. This Sha Wuji's divine sense was extremely sharp. He could actually sense his Yin deity? Thinking of this, Zhuowen hurriedly controlled his Yin deity to leave the place. His speed was extremely fast and silent. After the Yin deity left, the suspicion in Sha Wuji's eyes grew even stronger. His terrifying divine sense swept towards the place where Zhuowen had been. After scanning for a long time, he did not sense any qi. Only then did Sha Wuji mutter to himself, "Could it be that I'm hallucinating? Why does it feel like someone is watching me from here?" Sha Wuji's tyrannical divine sense swept through the entire dungeon and even the Hall of Punishment. However, he did not find anything. Only then did he give up. It must be my hallucination. After Sha Wuji finished speaking, he no longer cared about the feeling he had just felt. He closed his eyes again. His body erupted with an even thicker blood qi. It swirled around his body and looked extremely terrifying. The evil qi in the dungeon also became extremely terrifying. After the Yin deity left the dungeon, he did not leave the Hall of Punishment. Although he had felt Sha Wuji's divine sense, he was very confident. The Yin deity's ability to conceal himself could be said to be unparalleled. Sha Wuji's divine sense would not be able to detect him. The reason why Sha Wuji could sense him just now was because his divine sense was naturally sharp. It was not because of his divine sense. Chapter 3972. After setting up the array at the entrance of the dungeon, Zhuowen controlled his Yin spirit to go to the entrance of the Hall of Punishment and set up an equally powerful array. After doing all this, Zhuowen still felt that it was not safe enough, so he set up a heaven-breaking 7th Order array 1,000 meters away from the Hall of Punishment. In addition, he also set up a temporary teleportation array inside and outside the Hongwu Shengzhen. After everything was ready, Zhuowen controlled his Yin spirit to return to the outer sect peak. When the Yin spirit entered Zhuowen's body, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes, which shone with an unbearable light. He slowly stood up, opened the restriction at the entrance of the cave, and left the outer sect peak, heading straight for the Hall of Punishment. When he neared the Hall of Punishment, his Yin spirit separated from his body and silently entered the dungeon of the Hall of Punishment. Zhuowen, on the other hand, summoned the Sun God and strode towards the group of patrols outside the evil punishment hall. The patrols on the 3rd floor, who were originally on guard outside, immediately noticed the Sun Spirit's doppelganger. The Sun Spirit's appearance had been changed by Zhuowen to that of a middle-aged man. At this moment, he strode toward the Hall of Punishment with an imposing manner. It was obvious that he did not come with good intentions. Who are you? Stop right now. This is the Hall of Punishment. It's not a place for outsiders to enter. One of the patrols immediately noticed the Sun Spirit and couldn't help but shout. More than a dozen patrols immediately surrounded the Sun Spirit. The Sun Spirit's face was expressionless. He didn't care about these cultivators' obstruction at all. He struck out with his palm. Instantly, a terrifying palm force surged forward like a monstrous tsunami, drowning these cultivators. Bang, bang, bang. The Sun Spirit's strength was extremely powerful, especially after Zhuowen's cultivation reached the peak of the yin-yang change. The Sun Spirit's combat strength had become even more terrifying, comparable to an ordinary God domain change expert. Although these patrols were elites of the Hall of Punishment, they were still some distance away from the God domain change. Naturally, they were not yang spirits. They were God's opponents. The surging palm force was like a tidal wave, wreaking havoc among these cultivators. Instantly, the patrols were overturned by the terrifying palm force and couldn't help but retreat. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Quickly inform the elders. After the dozen or so cultivators were repelled, they immediately began to send out messages to inform the other two patrol teams. They also sent the message to limitless slaughter in the depths of the dungeon. Suddenly, the cultivators from the other two patrol teams gathered like locusts, and a series of terrifying magical powers greeted the Sun God. The physical body of the Yang God was too terrifying, and his movements were like that of a ghost. Most of these magical powers were dodged by him, and a small number of them landed on his body, but they did not cause him any harm. The Sun Spirit was like a hungry wolf that had entered a flock of sheep. Wherever it passed, a cultivator would be seriously injured or even die. While the Sun God was wreaking havoc outside the Hall of Punishment, Infinite Slaughter, who had been cultivating in the depths of the dungeon, suddenly opened his eyes. Scarlet light burst out from his eyes. How dare you cause trouble in the evil punishment hall? You're courting death. Sha Wuji coldly snorted, his murderous aura surging. He suddenly stood up and strode out of the dungeon. The baleful aura on his body was too dense. With every step he took, a terrifying baleful aura surged. This baleful aura was like sticky mucus, constantly surging in the air. In the dungeon, many prisoners who were imprisoned hid in a corner and trembled when they felt the terrifying baleful aura on Sha Wuji's body. They didn't even dare to raise their heads to look at Sha Wuji. There was only one person, and that was Hong Shenwu. He suddenly raised his head and glared at Sha Wuji, his eyes overflowing with hatred. Ever since he had been imprisoned here, he had been tortured day and night. Sha Wuji had done everything he could to get him to tell him the cultivation method of the Heaven and Earth Howren scripture. Unfortunately, Hong Shenwu was very stubborn and didn't say a single word. He even tried to commit suicide several times, but he was stopped by Sha Wuji. It could be said that Hong Shenwu completely hated Sha Wuji. Sha Wuji naturally felt Hong Shenwu's hateful gaze, but he didn't even look at Hong Shenwu. Instead, when he passed by Hong Shenwu's prison, he waved his sleeve and a baleful aura formed a whip, fiercely whipping Hong Shenwu's face. Instantly, a very long wound appeared on Hong Shenwu's face, extending from his forehead to his chin. Blood dripped from it. Wait until this lord takes care of that prancing monkey outside, then I'll take care of you. Hong Shenwu, this lord's patience is limited. If you're still stubborn, then perhaps I'll have to forcefully use a soul-searching technique. After Sha Wuji left, he left behind these cold words. When Sha Wuji arrived at the entrance of the dungeon, he felt that something was wrong, but he didn't have time to think. The heaven-shattering 7 steps formation that Zhuon had set up here was immediately activated. A terrifying formation energy erupted, completely submerging Sha Wuji. Bastard, who set up this formation here? Sha Wuji was furious, but he had no choice but to continuously mobilize all the strength in his body to resist the power of the formation. Not long after, Sha Wuji broke the heaven-shattering 7 steps formation at the entrance of the dungeon. Although he wasn't seriously injured, he was still in a sorry state. Sha Wuji's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He knew that this formation must have been set up by that bastard outside. He must tear that bastard apart. When Sha Wuji arrived at the entrance of the evil Punisher Hall, he saw the sun god displaying his might not far away. The 3 patrols that were originally guarding the evil Punisher Hall were almost completely defeated. Sha Wuji was furious. He took a step forward and charged towards the sun god. The sun god didn't even look at Sha Wuji. He immediately used his movement technique and fled out of the evil Punisher Hall. Bastard, you want to run after causing trouble? It won't be that easy. Sha Wuji sneered. He didn't think too much and chased after him. However, the moment Sha Wuji rushed out of the evil Punisher Hall, he immediately felt that something was wrong. A grand wave of formation energy spread out and instantly swept him in. Damned guy, he even set up a formation here. Sha Wuji roared angrily. Even his lungs were about to explode. With great difficulty, Sha Wuji managed to escape the formation. The sun god had already gone far away, but Sha Wuji had already lost his mind. He didn't think that this was unreasonable. Like a beast that had lost its mind, he chased after the sun god. At the same time, a black shadow quietly entered the dungeon and smoothly arrived at Hong Shenwu's prison. At this moment, Hong Shenwu seemed to have sensed something. He discovered that the shackles on his body had been removed. Then, a black shadow appeared in front of him. "Sect Master, it's me." Zhuowen's voice came from the black shadow. "Daowen, it's you? How did you sneak into Hong Wushengzhen?" Hong Shenwu found it unbelievable as he looked at the black shadow in front of him in surprise. "It's a long story. Sect Master, come with me out of the dungeon first," Yin Shen said in a deep voice. Chapter 3973. Not long after, the Yin god brought Hong Shenwu to the entrance of the evil Punisher Hall. At this moment, the evil Punisher Hall was already empty. All of the guards were attracted by the sun god and were chasing after him. Zhuowen, who was originally hiding outside the evil Punisher Hall, quickly arrived at the entrance. The Yin god turned into a black shadow and merged into Zhuowen's body. When Hong Shenwu saw Zhuowen's true body, his eyes revealed excitement. When he first saw the Yin god, he was still rather puzzled. But now, he was no longer puzzled. The person who saved him this time was Jun. "Down, I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to come and save me so rashly. Hong Wushengzhen is too powerful," Hong Shenwu said worriedly. Zhuowen smiled and said, "During this period of time, it just so happens that the 4 Shenzhen martial arts competition is taking place. Most of the upper echelons of Shenzhen have already left." Hearing this, Hong Shenwu revealed a look of understanding. No wonder Zhuowen had chosen this time to save him. This was indeed the best time to save him. Following that, Zhuowen brought Hong Shenwu to the temporary teleportation array that had been set up earlier. Seeing that Zhuowen had not activated the temporary teleportation array, Hong Shenwu could not help but ask, "Sect Master, don't worry. I'm waiting for my other clone to come and meet up with me. As long as my clone arrives, I'll immediately activate this teleportation array," Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Hong Shenwu nodded. He was not a fool. He naturally knew that the commotion outside the evil Punisher Hall must have been caused by someone causing trouble and attracting the attention of Sha Wuji. And this person was clearly the clone that Zhuowen spoke of. It didn't take long for a golden figure to shoot over from a distance, like a falling sun. Hong Shenwu looked over and discovered that this figure was exactly the same as Jun. However, it was the image of a middle-aged man. It was obvious that he had disguised himself. This figure was the sun god. However, at this moment, the sun god's condition was not good. Dense cracks appeared all over his body, and from these cracks, drops of incomparably bright golden blood flowed out. At the same time, Sha Wuji, who was behind the young god, was following closely with bloodshot eyes. It seemed that he would not stop until he destroyed the young god. Soon, the sun spirit landed beside Zhuowen and turned into a golden light that merged into his body. Sha Wuji immediately noticed Zhuowen, especially after seeing Zhuowen's outer disciple robe. He was stunned at first, then became furious and roared, "Bastard, so all of this was your doing, die for me." The moment he saw Zhuowen, He understood that all of this was orchestrated by Zhuan. Without even thinking, he formed a palm with his right hand and suddenly blasted it out. Instantly, a terrifying murderous aura surged out like a solid liquid and attacked Dune. Limitless Killer's right palm was like a terrifying mountain. It fell from the sky and enveloped Zhuowen's head. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly. He looked indifferently at Sha Wuji and said sarcastically, "Elder Sha, see you later." After saying that, Zhuan activated the temporary teleportation array. A white light enveloped Zhuowen's entire body, and then he disappeared on the spot. Boom! Limitless Slaughter's terrifying palm energy descended, completely shattering the spot where Zhuowen stood into countless cracks and dust. Sha Wuji's expression became extremely ugly. He had not expected that Zhuowen would set up a temporary teleportation array here. "Little bastard, do you think you can escape like this?" Sha Wuji was so angry that his face turned ugly. He suddenly cut his forearm with his right index finger, and immediately, cherry red blood flowed out. Sha Wuji's expression was solemn. His hands were constantly forming strange seals. Suddenly, some kind of red magic array appeared in the void in front of him. The pattern inside the formation was actually a wriggling red snake. Suddenly, the snake opened its eyes, emitting a scarlet light. The red snake was like a red lightning bolt. It disappeared on the spot and suddenly rushed out of the sect. "You can't escape." Sha Wuji's eyes were ruthless. He followed the red snake and rushed out of Hongwu Shengzhen. At this moment, Hongwu Shengzhen was in a state of panic because of the commotion caused by Sha Wuji and the Sun God. Many cultivator armies were mobilized and spread throughout the sect. Another elder of the 10 halls came out of seclusion and activated the sect protection array, wanting to stop Zhuowen. Unfortunately, Zhuowen had used the teleportation array to leave the sect and was not trapped in the sect. After Sha Wuji ordered the elder of the 10 halls to guard the sect, he rushed out of Hongwu Shengzhen. In a dense forest about 10 miles outside of Hongwu Shengzhen, a white light flashed. Zhuowen and Hong Shenwu appeared in the dense forest. After walking out of the teleportation array, Zhuowen felt something. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Hongwu Shengzhen. His expression changed slightly. He felt Sha Wuji's terrifying aura rapidly approaching. He knew that Sha Wuji must have used some unknown secret method to find his location. Thinking of this, Zhuowen knew that the situation was urgent. He did not dare to delay and immediately walked to another temporary teleportation array. But soon he was completely stunned. The temporary teleportation array he had set up outside Hongwu Shengzhen was destroyed. "Who destroyed my temporary teleportation array?" Hun was shocked and bewildered. He felt that it was unbelievable. The temporary teleportation array he had set up was extremely secretive. Ordinary people would not be able to find its specific location. Now that it was destroyed, Yuan had a bad feeling. "Dawen, I've been observing you for a long time. From the first time I saw you, I could tell that you don't have any feelings for the Hong martial sacred sect. You don't even admire it. At that time, I was very curious. Why would someone like you choose to join Hongwu Shengzhen? After thinking about it, I guessed that you must have entered Hongwu Shengzhen with some purpose." Suddenly, a calm voice came from the depths of the dense forest. Then, Yuan saw a white-haired young man slowly walking toward him. He walked very slowly, but in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Zhuowen as if he had teleported. Zhuowen looked at the white-haired young man in front of him, and his expression turned ugly. The white-haired young man in front of him was the sect leader of Hongwu Shengzhen, Gui Jing. Although Hong Shenwu didn't recognize this white-haired youth, he could tell that the white-haired youth in front of him was very strong from the ocean-like aura he emitted. He was even much stronger than Sha Wuji. "What a coincidence to meet you here, sect leader. May I know why you are here, sect leader?" Zhuowen said coldly. Hong Shenwu was shocked. He looked Gui Jing up and down. He did not expect the white-haired young man in front of him to be the sect leader of Hongwu Shengzhen. He was a true powerhouse at the peak of the Liyuan main district. Chapter 3974. At this moment, a terrifying aura surged over from afar. Waves of viscous baleful aura that seemed to have substance fell in the surroundings like raindrops. Hong Shenwu's expression changed. He knew that Sha Wuji was here. Sha Wuji descended from the sky, blocking Zhuo Wen and Hong Shenwu's path. His scarlet eyes were filled with brutality and fury. But soon he also noticed the white-haired youth. He was stunned at first, but then he quickly cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Sha Wuji of the Punisher Hall greets the sect master." Gui Jing nodded slightly at Sha Wuji and then looked at Xun. "Daowen, do you know why I'm here? Why ask when you already know the answer?" Sha Wuji's eyes flashed. From Gui Jing's words, this Daowen seemed to know Gui Jing? Although Sha Wuji was very angry, since this matter involved the sect master, he naturally didn't dare to act rashly. If Zhuan was really familiar with Gui Jing, he would offend the sect master if he made a move. The best thing to do now was to wait and see. Zhuowen looked at Gui Jing silently and said in a deep voice, "Sect master, Hong Shenwu is my friend. I hope that sect master can let him off on account of my master." Gui Jing was silent for a moment, then he shook his head. "Hong Shenwu has the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. I must get it. I can't just let him go." Hong Shenwu's eyes were filled with anger. The Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra was obtained by the founder of the Hong sect. When your Hongwu Shengzhen wanted it, you only needed to tell us and we might have shared it with your Hongwu Shengzhen. After all, you're the main sect, and we're just a subsect. But you didn't. You didn't have the face to ask us for it. Instead, you wanted to destroy us and steal the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Although your Hongwu Shengzhen is the main sect, you're all a bunch of hypocrites. Sha Wuji's killing intent soared as he said coldly, "Hong Shenwu, how dare you slander the Hong martial sacred sect? You're courting death." "Slander? Why would Hongwu Shengzhen need me to slander him? Isn't this the base of your Hongwu Shengzhen? How laughable." Hong Shenwu laughed loudly and continued, "I can go back with you, but this matter has nothing to do with Daowen. Let him go." Sha Wuji cast a sidelong glance at Zhuan and snorted coldly, "This kid barged into the Hall of Punishment and injured many of Hongwu Shengzhen's men. He has already committed a grave crime. Let him go? You're dreaming." Zhuan did not look at Sha Wuji at all but looked at Gui Jing and said coolly, "Sect master, right and wrong, I think you're clearer than me. If you can't tell right from wrong, then I have nothing to say. We can only fight." Gui Jing was silent for a long time. Then he sighed and said, "I am deeply sorry for what happened to the Hong sect. Unfortunately, I was not the sect leader at that time and did not have the authority to make decisions. However, I did not participate in that operation. Although I also wanted to obtain the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra, I did not agree with that method. However, at that time, my words carried little weight and I could not change anything." At this point, Gui Jing looked deeply at Hong Shenwu and said, "Sect Master Hong, I can help you rebuild the Hong sect and make it the #1 sect in the Wukong State region. My request is very simple. You can give the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra to me, Hongwu Shengzhen. I, Gui Jing, am willing to bear the grudge of the past and compensate you with everything that can be compensated. What do you think?" Hong Shenwu was stunned. He did not expect Gui Jing to not be aggressive and instead speak kindly to him. He was even willing to make up for the grudge of the annihilation of the Hong sect. Yun was silent. This matter involved the Hong sect's past, so he naturally could not interfere. His goal this time was only to save Hong Shenwu. As for the grudge between the Hong sect and Hongwu Shengzhen, he could not interfere. Everything depended on what Hong Shenwu did. After a long time, Hong Shenwu raised his head and looked directly at Gui Jing, saying, "Sect Master Gui, you are different from the others in Hongwu Shengzhen. I admire your magnanimity. I can give you the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra, but I do not need you to support the Hong sect again, nor do I need any compensation. I only want one person's life." Gui Jing's expression changed slightly. He could already guess whose life Hong Shenwu wanted. That year, the idea of destroying the Hong sect was one of the 10 elders, Gu Yunfei's idea. The previous sect master also accepted it. Later, the previous sect master passed away. Gu Yunfei personally led a group of Hongwu Shengzhen's elites to the Wukong state region and joined forces with Hongwu Divine Sect to completely destroy the Hong sect. I want the life of Elder Gu Yunfei of the Divine Goose Hall. If Sect Master can fulfill my request, I will give you the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra without any additional conditions. Hong Shenwu said in a low voice. How dare you? Gu Yunfei is one of the 10 hall elders of the Hong martial sacred sect. He has a high position and authority. You want to kill him? That's treason. Sha Wuji said furiously. Hong Shenwu did not even look at Sha Wuji. Instead, he looked at Gui Jing, who had sunk into silence, and said, Sect Master Gui, if you can fulfill my request, I will immediately give you the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Gui Jing looked deeply at Hong Shenwu and said, Gu Yunfei is one of the 10 elders. He has great influence in Hongwu Shengzhen. I cannot kill Elder Gu for you. However, I can give you a fair chance to fight Elder Gu. If you have the ability to kill Elder Gu, Hongwu Shengzhen will not pursue the matter. Hong Shenwu was disappointed. Gu Yunfei was a fiend god transformation expert. No matter how strong he was, could he be stronger than Gu Yunfei? Moreover, even if he cultivated desperately, he might not be able to catch up to Gu Yunfei in his lifetime, let alone kill him. Sect Master, agree. Just as Hong Shenwu was about to refuse, Yuan suddenly spoke. Hong Shenwu looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Zhuowen smiled and said, I will help you deal with Gu Yunfei. Trust me. Hearing this, Hong Shenwu looked at Zhuowen in a daze. After realizing that the latter was not joking, he gritted his teeth and said, Sect Master Gui, I agree to your suggestion. However, Dawen will fight Gu Yunfei. Gui Jing could not help but look at Zhuowen. He opened his mouth, but in the end he did not say anything. After all, Yuan was Shan Lingyun's disciple. In his opinion, Yuan challenging Gu Yunfei was simply courting death. However, since Yuan had said so, and it was his suggestion, he naturally could not go back on his words because of Zhuowen. Otherwise, his dignity as the sect master would be gone. Sha Wuji laughed coldly and said, You really don't know what's good for you. Although your strength is not bad, the gap between you and the elders of the 10 halls is still too big. You actually want to fight Elder Gu. If that's not courting death, what is? That might not be the case. Zhuowen said indifferently. Sha Wuji was furious. This brat's attitude really made him unhappy. Chapter 3975. After Hong Shenwu and Gui Jing came to an agreement, Hong Shenwu and Zhuowen didn't choose to stay in the Hongwu Shengzhen to wait for the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition to end. They decided to return to the Wukangzi region to settle the score with Shi Shenhong. Of course, Zhuowen had also sent a message to Luo Lingyu about returning to the Wukong state through the communication Jade token. Back then, Yuan and Luo Lingyu had an agreement that they would fight their way to the Hongwu Divine Sect together to avenge Luo Lingyu's master, Gu Tianxiao. Luo Lingyu quickly replied to Zhuowen and decided to return to the Wukangzi region with Zhuowen. Although the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition had yet to end, Luo Lingyu wasn't the main force in this competition. Hence, her participation in the competition didn't affect the Green Phoenix Shengzhen. After Zhuowen and Luo Lingyu agreed on a location, Yuan went to the valley where Shan Lingyun was and bid farewell to her. Shan Lingyun didn't object, but she was full of resentment towards Zhuowen's agreement to fight Gu Yunfei for Hong Shenwu. Although she knew that her disciple's strength was extraordinary, his cultivation was only at the peak of the yin-yang change realm. The difference between him and Gu Yunfei was too obvious. She didn't think highly of Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't say anything about this and just dismissed it with a smile. He was very clear about his own strength. If he relied on his own strength, he was indeed no match for Gu Yunfei. However, he had a stage 5 astral weapon, which gave him the right to fight Gu Yunfei. Moreover, he also had the ultimate trump card, the Grand Emperor's Seal. Although the Grand Emperor's Seal was extremely mysterious, Yuan had been studying it recently and roughly understood its usage. The Grand Emperor's Seal was something that seemed to surpass the heaven-breaking divine artifact. It was definitely very powerful. If he used the seal, even 10 Gu Yunfei wouldn't be enough to kill him. Of course, the Grand Emperor's Seal was of utmost importance. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Yuan naturally did not want to reveal such a trump card. If he could successfully break through to the God Domain transformation before returning to Hongwu Shenzhen, his strength would skyrocket to a terrifying level. Even without the Grand Sovereign Seal, Yuan was confident that he could defeat Gu Yunfei. After bidding farewell to Shan Lingyun, Yuan and Hong Shenwu boarded the Sea King and left Hongwu Shenzhen's island. They headed towards the teleportation zone between the Liyuan main region and the other regions. A few days later, the two of them arrived at the teleportation zone. They did not have to wait for too long before Luo Lingyu also arrived to meet up with them. After the three of them met up, they entered the teleportation array to the Wukong region. After paying a certain fee, they were teleported away. When Zhuowen and the other two opened their eyes again, what appeared before them was the interior of a vast hall. "Looks like we've returned to the Central Plains Divine Palace," Luo Lingyu said as she looked around the Divine Palace. Zhuowen nodded. When they left the Wukong region for the Liyuan main region, they used the teleportation array in the Central Plains Divine Palace. This time, they naturally returned to the Central Plains Divine Palace. The Central Plains Divine Palace was bustling with people. Many of them were cultivators with powerful auras. They were heading to other regions or the Liyuan main region. Of course, most of them were heading to the Liyuan main region. After all, the Liyuan main region was one level higher than the other regions. It had better prospects for development. Naturally, it attracted many powerful and talented cultivators to train there, hoping to make a name for themselves. "Let's go. We'll head straight to the Hongwu Divine Sect." Zhuowen walked out of the Central Plains Divine Palace. His gaze landed in the direction of the Hongwu Divine Sect. His eyes were filled with coldness. Hong Shenwu and Luo Lingyu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Hongwu Divine Sect had once tried to kill them. Now that they had returned to the Wukong region, they were going to settle their grudges with the Hongwu Divine Sect and Shi Shenhong. While Zhuowen and the other two were returning to the Wukong region, the Hongwu Divine Sect was bustling with activity. All the experts from the various sects in the Wukong region had gathered in the Hongwu Divine Sect. The originally deserted Hongwu Divine Sect was bustling with people today. Today was the 30,000-year anniversary of the Hongwu Divine Sect. Shi Shenhong had specially organized a grand anniversary celebration and invited many sects in the Wukong region. After all, the Hongwu Divine Sect was the #1 sect in the Wukong region. Shi Shenhong was the most powerful person in the Wukong region. Since Shi Shenhong had sent out an invitation, many sects did not dare to not give him face. At this moment, Shi Shenhong was sitting on the main seat in the Hongwu Divine Hall of the Hongwu Divine Sect. In the hall, beautiful maids were standing by the table in an orderly manner, carrying fine wine and delicacies. They were on standby at any time. In the middle of the hall, beautiful women were dancing. They were like butterflies flapping their wings. They danced in the middle of the hall. It was a gorgeous and beautiful scene. The great guardian of the Crimson Peak Sacred Hall, Gongye Bolong, has arrived. 8 Gods Zhan Sect's vice-sect leader, Yun Kenglin, has arrived. Divine Firmament Soul Sect's sect leader, He Yangshu, has arrived. The receptionists standing at the entrance of the hall were constantly receiving the experts from the various sections. Especially the Crimson Peak Sacred Hall and the 8 Gods Zhan Sect, which were not any weaker than the Hongwu Divine Sect. Shi Shenhong would personally receive them and exchange a few pleasantries. As time passed, more and more experts from the sects entered the Hongwu Hall and took their seats. Could it be Brother Daowen? When Zhuowen and the other two arrived near the Hongwu Divine Sect, a surprised voice attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen could not help but turn his head. 1,000 meters behind him, a huge mutated beast was flying through the air. There were a few people standing on the beast's broad back. The person in the lead was a muscular and burly woman. When Zhuowen saw this burly woman, he could not help but be stunned. This burly woman was none other than the owner of the Great Music Lane, Che Xiare. Back then, Yun had obtained the entry token to participate in the Hongwu Shenzhen's entrance trial from the Great Music Lane. The vice-sect master of the Great Music Lane, Lu Xiaodao, stood respectfully behind Che Xiare. When he saw Zhuowen, a look of surprise appeared on his face. The mutated beast stopped beside Zhuowen and the other two. Che Xiaowei said heroically, "Brother Daowen, let me congratulate you first on officially becoming the Hongwu Shengzhen's disciple. Your future is limitless. I'm afraid the day of your meteoric rise is not far away." Zhuowen politely said a few words. Then he asked in surprise, "Owner Che, along the way, I saw many sects upper echelons coming to the Hongwu Divine Sect. Did something happen in the Hongwu Divine Sect?" Che Xiaowei looked at Zhuowen in surprise and said, "Brother Daowen, don't you know about the Hongwu Divine Sect's anniversary celebration? I thought you were invited here and already knew about this matter." After listening to Che Xiaowei's explanation, Zhuowen finally knew that the Hongwu Divine Sect had been established for 30,000 years. Today was the anniversary celebration that Shi Shenhong had purposely organized. Zhuowen casually said that he was just passing by. Che Xiaowei did not suspect him and warmly invited Zhuowen to participate in the Hongwu Divine Sect's anniversary celebration. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.